free mobile app, live video streaming on our YouTube channel. I'm your host, Mike Gill, live today at Chickies and Pete's in Atlantic City inside the Tropicana Hotel and Casino Atlantic City. Josh Henning producing today's show back in the Maplat Kia studios. And you out there, we've got a big show for you. Sal Paolantonio in less than an hour from now gives his Sal Pal thoughts on the Eagles and the Buccaneers. He'll be down there to cover it for ESPN. We've also got Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press tonight, who will be covering the game live in Tampa Bay as well for the AP. Former Tampa Bay Buccaneer Anthony Becht, a first-round pick in the NFL. He does a lot of Buccaneers radio. In fact, he called the game last week. He was the analyst for Buccaneers radio. So I guess he did the Eagles game on Saturday night for Westwood One, and then did the Buccaneer game for Buccaneers radio on Sunday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, against the Carolina Panthers. So we got a lot of coverage for you today. Also coming up at Football at 4, Andrew DeCecco with the matchups that he's looking for in this one. We did our quarterback rankings yesterday. 14 quarterbacks, ranked them from 14 to 1. ESPN.com put their list out today, so that kind of worked out. We did ours yesterday. They put theirs out today. We'll match ours up to their list and see how close our thoughts were to some of the national writers on our 14 QBs. Today, we're going to do the head coaches. I've got the 14 head coaches ranked in order from 14 to 1 on who I want on my sideline this Sunday for Wild Card Weekend. We got plenty of thoughts. If you're following me on Twitter, at Mike Gill Show, I started to give you a couple of nuggets, a couple of thoughts on how I'm leaning on these games. Starting to get a little bit of a feel, a little bit of a lean towards which way I'm going for the Super Wild Card Weekend. So follow me on Twitter, at Mike Gill Show. And if you want to comment, you can always text in 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973 on the text board. If you're listening on the free mobile app, you can message us through the app on your phone. And, of course, if you're watching live on the YouTube channel, which you can find easily, just search 973 ESPN on YouTube. You can launch the YouTube app through your smart TV, your laptop TV, your laptop tablet or mobile phone, and just hit the YouTube app, search 97.3 ESPN, and you can start watching the show live as we do it every single day. So I do want to get into some of the football today, a lot of the football today. By the way, Todd Rank is back tonight at 5 o'clock after a couple of weeks hiatus. He is back to – now, Rank and I have a big text messaging battle going on, all right? He is a Stafford guy, and I am not a Stafford guy. So as you can imagine, we've got back and forth going. And he told me, now I was on the anti-Stafford thing weeks ago. Then all of a sudden, Stafford started to really play poorly. I think he had 7 turnovers in a 3-game span, to which the national shows started to bring up Stafford. I said, yeah, it's easy to say it once he's turned the ball over. I told you he was. Now, what I said was he stinks. Now, that's going overboard. Matt Stafford doesn't stink. So then, of course, Rank retorted and said, well, he doesn't stink. That's asinine. And I said, all right, you're right. So I reeled that back. I reeled that comment back. I said, he doesn't stink. He's just eh. And when I say he's just he's not bad. I just don't want him. You can have him, all right? Your team can have Matt Stafford. I don't want Matt Stafford. So, of course, now every time there's conversation about Matt Stafford, people are, he's sending me the screenshots of what this guy's saying. I'm sending them back. Here we go. Now we're on the seesaw. Here's to justify my point. No, here's to justify my point. And in the end, this is what I told him. If Matt Stafford, he doesn't even have to win the Super Bowl. I'm not asking Matthew Stafford to win the Super Bowl. But they are the number 4 seed, right? So he blew his chance to be the 2 seed in losing that game on Sunday, right? So that's 1 strike against him. And in that game, he threw a key interception again. So what I told Rank was this. Now, you tell me if you think this is fair or not. I'm not asking Stafford to win the Super Bowl to say This would be my criteria of saying that I will say that I'm wrong on Stafford. Right now, I believe Stafford is you can have him. I don't want him. All right? And that's my opinion. It doesn't mean that I'm right or wrong. But I will say that he's better than I'm giving him credit for if he wins 2 games. Is that fair or unfair?
I think it's definitely fair. By the way, the stat you were talking about is in the last 4 games, Stafford has 8 interceptions and 1 fumble
Well, he had
loss.
7 in 3 games, and then he had another. So then he played a 4th game since that stat.
Yeah, it's 8 interceptions in the last 4 games.
Yeah, because he threw another interception late in that game against San Francisco. Was it a very inopportune situation? Now, he would have to beat Kyler Murray and Tom Brady, essentially.
Yeah.
If he does that, he doesn't have to get to the Super Bowl. I'm not expecting him to beat Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. But listen, here's the problem I have with the whole Stafford thing. You're the number 1 pick in the draft at one point. He puts up big numbers, so he doesn't suck. He's not a bust of a number 1 overall pick. But he's never won a playoff game. And as the number 1 overall pick, you are taken by a team that anticipates you changing the culture of the franchise. I'm not saying that you're automatically going to win a Super Bowl because you took a guy number 1 overall, but you should change the culture of that franchise. And Matt Stafford did not change the culture of the Lions. And quite frankly, you can make an argument that he did nothing to better the culture of the Rams. They went to a Super Bowl without Matthew Stafford. And guess what? They traded a bundle of stuff to go get him, and they're still the 4th seed. So what did he really do to better that franchise? To me, skedaddle, nothing.
Like, part of the problem also is the fact that we've already seen Jared Goff go with the Rams to the Super Bowl. Jared Goff is 2-3 as a postseason starting quarterback. Matthew Stafford is 0-3 as a postseason starter.
I'm surprised that Stafford's even played in 3 games. I don't even remember them making the playoffs 3 times. And you laugh, but still.
2 of them were with Jim Caldwell, and they fired him.
Right. So, that's the thing, is you draft a guy number 1 overall. The anticipation is our team's about to take a turn for the better. We're going to, like, for instance now, okay? Let's just throw the comparison out there. Matthew Stafford gets drafted by Detroit, number 1 overall. Detroit is perpetually horrible. They get the number 1 pick, and he's not a bust. That's the thing. Stafford's not a bust.
Definitely
He
not.
put up big numbers in Detroit. He was so good numerically that another team said, we'll take that guy. You don't see that happen all the time. Like, nobody says, hey, Jamarcus Russell, I'll take that guy. No, he stunk. He was a number 1 pick who was a bust and stunk. You've had other guys who have been the number 1 pick, or let's just say first-round picks, okay? Not all first-round pick quarterbacks turn into guys that are successful. Like, they can't play. Stafford can play, but he wasn't good enough to change the franchise. And you would, Rank's retort to me is, well, they're the Lions. Well, guess what? Joe Burrow was taken by Cincinnati. Cincinnati, it's not like they are the poster child for success. That franchise is a dumpster fire. But Joe Burrow was good enough that he elevated that franchise. He changed the thought process. Matt Stafford doesn't change the thought process. He must not be a good leader. He must be missing something. He's not bad. Statistically speaking, he's pretty good. But there's something missing from him that the Detroit Lions could never get out of their own way with him as the quarterback, whereas a guy like Joe Burrow has already changed the direction of that franchise. Already. He has already come in there, Joe Burrow has, and changed the Cincinnati Bengals. Not too many quarterbacks come right into a place. Now, they didn't win right away last year, but you could see, man, this guy could play. And then this year, already, and look, they've got problems. Their offensive line stinks. Their defense is just okay. He's got a lot of weapons, but Matt Stafford, he went to a place and they just never got good. Never. And it's not like they weren't bad because Stafford was bad. That's the bizarre part about this is you got the quarterback, you got a quarterback, and you stunk. I don't get it.
Yeah, the whole problem with this gets back to the thing I've always said, Mike, and I know it bothers some of our listeners, and that is, at the end of the day, not every quarterback is going to be elite. So the team you put around the quarterback is very important. And Stafford is in a very good situation in Los Angeles. He's got an offensive line. He's got receivers. He's got running backs. He's got the coach. He's got the defense. There's no more excuses here.
Right. And the question is, they're the number 4 seed with Matt Stafford. They were better than that with Jared Goff. They went to a Super Bowl. Weren't they the number 1 seed with Jared Goff?
Let me double check that.
I think they have been a number 1 seed with Jared Goff. Not the year that Philadelphia was the 1 seed, but I think the next year, 2018, I think they were the number 1 seed. Now, that team went to a Super Bowl with Jared Goff. So it is not preposterous.
Yes, 2018.
Okay, that's what I thought. The year after Philly won, I think the Rams were the 1 seed. It's not preposterous for me to say then, Jared Goff took you to a Super Bowl. Why shouldn't I expect Matt Stafford to be able to get you to a Super Bowl? Why? So the whole Matt Stafford thing, to me, the reason I bring up Stafford, if people are like, who the hell cares? He plays for the Rams. I feel like that situation with the Rams being the number 4 seed, I think that, like, the quarterback here, somebody has beaten Rodgers. Rodgers hasn't won the Super Bowl every single year. In fact, he's only won 1 Super Bowl.
Right.
So to tell me, well, I can't expect I can't expect Stafford to knock out, somebody beats Rodgers every single year. Every year, except for 1, somebody has knocked Rodgers out.
Correct.
So why wouldn't, if Matt Stafford's as good as people are implicating, or, in the conversation that I have with Todd, if he's telling me Stafford's better than I'm giving him credit for, why wouldn't he be able to be the guy that knocks out Tom Brady? Why wouldn't he be the guy that be able to? Because now Brady's won 7 Super Bowls. I can understand you saying, hey, that's a little bit more far-fetched. But Aaron Rodgers only won 1 time, which means the other 15 times or however many times he's been to the playoffs, somebody else has knocked him out. Why couldn't it be Stafford? Why couldn't it be whoever? And I think that's what makes these playoffs very interesting, is that you've got the top 2 seeds in this thing in the NFC that have clearly the top 2 MVP candidates in the league. The 2 top MVP candidates in the NFL are the 1 and 2 seeds in this NFC playoff chase. I think that's very, very intriguing, because there's a good possibility, guys, that to win or get to a Super Bowl, the other group of quarterbacks are going to have to knock off Brady, Rodgers, and quite possibly Patrick Mahomes. To win a Super Bowl, if you're not one of those guys, you're going to have to be, let's just say, Jalen Hurts. If you want to win a Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts is going to have to beat Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, somebody in the NFC Championship game, and probably Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. It's my point. It's not an easy road for anybody to do this. And that's what makes this playoff, I think, very interesting, is the fact that the top 2 quarterbacks have so much history and success. And the rest of the guys are just all trying to earn it now, right? Who would be the next guy in the NFC?
I mean, after you talk about quarterbacks or teams, like,
yeah, a quarterback. Like, who's got the next most
success?
Success.
I mean, after Brady and Rodgers,
God's sakes, Dak Prescott's won what? 1 playoff
Dak's
game?
got a playoff win,
right? Murray has none.
Murray's got none. Stafford has none.
None.
Hurts is in his first playoff start.
Yeah, this is Hurts' first playoff start or game. That's 1, 2, 3.
Jimmy
4.
G, he got to a Super Bowl.
Jimmy G's been to a Super Bowl. So Jimmy G of this group would be the 3rd most accomplished NFC quarterback.
I mean, that's sad just to say.
Think about that. So does that make you feel that it's wide open, or does that make you feel that you got no shot?
I would say a little of both, because you know that Rodgers, as you just mentioned, has only been to 1 Super Bowl and won it. So you know that him and his teams have a history of being beaten. We know that Brady has won 7 rings, but he didn't win this championship every year, and his current team is banged up. So there's a small feeling of maybe you can do it, but as you just mentioned, when you have guys like Stafford, who's never won a playoff game, guys like Murray and Hurts, who are in their first playoff appearance, it's hard to get behind some of these teams.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was thinking about this last night. Like, how many teams have a legitimate shot? Like, there were years in the past, you get into the playoffs, and you're like, not all these playoff teams have a shot. Like, the Andy Dalton Cincinnati Bengal teams would get in, and they never won a playoff game, not once.
I think they were 0-6, if I remember correctly.
And you just never believe that they could win. Or the Houston Texans, they got into the playoffs all those years.
Matt Schaub.
With like TJ Yates. They had a bunch of just rando quarterbacks because of injury or whatever happened, late in the year. And you're like, this team's in the playoffs, but they can't really win. How many of the teams can actually win this thing?
Right.
Is the question. Because when we did that quarterback ranking list yesterday, Ben Roethlisberger, you would say he's got 2, but you don't feel like he's got a shot to win this thing. So you're even paring down the list of the guys who have had success.
It's absolutely wild. By the way, the stat is Marvin Lewis was 0-6 in the postseason. Andy Dalton was 0-4.
I think Dalton was hurt 1 year, or maybe 2, and they had 1 year with Palmer, I guess. Palmer might have got in early, and then I think 1 year
they got their 2 years with Palmer.
Okay, 2 years with Palmer. I was going to say, I thought Dalton got hurt 1 year, and they had to use some rando guy to play quarterback, but I guess not. Maybe I'm thinking about the Arizona Cardinal, Ryan Lindley.
Oh, my goodness.
Wasn't that the year that the Cardinals got into the playoffs?
Yeah, that was when Carson Palmer got injured. And
they had to use their
Lindley and
third string.
Skelton. Remember him?
John Skelton.
Woo!
Lindley played for the Bengals, though, right?
Yes, he did.
So that's why I was thinking. I thought I remember Lindley having to play in a game, and I guess I figured it was replacing Dalton.
Ryan Lindley also appeared in a game for the Colts, apparently.
In the playoffs?
No, regular season game.
Oh. Speaking of the Colts, did you see Chris Ballard's comments on Carson Wentz? I mean, geez, talk about not a ringing endorsement to come back. My God, he just blitzed them.
I mean, Ballard, if you read some of the other quotes, I mean, he basically just blowtorched his roster. He was just like, there's no guarantee that anybody will be back next year. You're like, wait a minute, what?
Well, that's just a kind of overview of like everything. Hey, I get that. There's no guarantee that, we didn't make the playoffs. Like, okay, I get that. But I guess when he was directly asked about Carson Wentz, I mean, he basically came out and was like, hey, we made the trade last year, and it was essentially like, I don't know that I would do it again. Like, I mean, it was just like, my gosh, poor Carson Wentz, like, just the owner yesterday, he was not happy with Wentz. He said this is what Ballard said, quote, at the time, we felt it was the right decision.
At the time.
Yeah, I'm not going to make a comment on who's going to be here next year and who's not. But him starting out with, at the time, we felt it was the right decision. Is that not? But now we're really got buyer's remorse on that one.
It's there's a part of you that has to think about Ballard, how frustrated he is, because apparently, according to some of the other Colts reporters, he was asked about a couple other things, and he paused for like 5-10 seconds at a time before he answered some of these questions. Like, the dude just sounds like he's so aggravated.
Yeah, well, he said something yesterday that I think is what I was saying all last year. You remember we would have these battles about, like, was it the quarterback or was it Doug Peterson?
Right.
And at the time, I was doing the show with Broads, and Broads was kind of not defending Wentz as much, but blaming Wentz, blaming Peterson more than Wentz.
Right.
And I said, look, the coach, I don't have any problem with the coach is calling plays. The quarterback's missing. He's just not there. There's 5-yard passes he's inaccurate on. In other words, if you complete that 5-yard pass, you're now 2nd and 5 instead of 2nd and 10.
Right.
Like, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but it's a huge deal in the whole play call scheme of things. So Ballard says yesterday, the layups, you got to make the layups. Essentially saying what I complained about all year last year is Wentz is out there. He'll make the great play. He'll make the play that you're like, wow, look at that play. But he doesn't make the layup. Here's a guy who'll do a 360 dunk, but he misses a layup.
Right.
And I feel like That has, I got into this conversation with somebody the other day about Wentz. And I don't like everybody's kicking the guy while he's down. I hate this whole, hey, he's not here anymore, and he's not very good where he is. Let's just kick him. Here's my problem. Like, for me, the whole Wentz thing, here's a guy who had tremendous talent. He was a great, great talent.
Yes.
He could improvise. He had a strong arm.
Definitely.
He could get out of trouble. He made plays with his legs. He could take off and run. He could avoid hits. He could avoid sacks. That's what made Wentz special. And then he got the knee injury. And after that knee injury, he was just not the same mobile guy. He could not do the improvise anymore. He could not make the plays with his legs that he made in 2017. And if he can't do that, he's not a drop back passer who's going to just sit there and throw for 75% completions. Then you get the back injury. All right. So he comes back from the knee, and he's just coming back from that, and then he breaks his back. Then he comes back from the back injury, and he gets knocked out by Jadeveon Clowney.
And he played that full season, by the way. He got through one full season with no real injury, and then you get to the playoffs, boom, here comes Clowney.
Right. So if you remember his first year before he got drafted by the Eagles, he had a broken wrist. He broke his wrist in college.
Right.
Then his first season with the Eagles, in the preseason, he breaks his ribs.
Yep.
Then he tears his ACL, and I want to say his PCL or his LCL in the same knee injury. He had people forget, he didn't just tear his ACL. He tore his whole knee, 2 different ligaments in that knee. Then he comes back. He has the broken back. Then he has the concussion. I'm not trying to make excuses for the guy, but what I'm saying is, yes, I'm acknowledging he's no longer a serviceable quarterback in this league because he's not the same player. He just had, it's like a boxer who you're like, man, that guy was really good 5 years ago. Well, yeah, 5 years later, he got the crap beat out of him.
Right.
If you go into war and you're getting just beat up in the ring, you're saying, damn, that guy looks like a shot fighter. Carson Wentz just looks like a shot QB right now. You can't game plan for Carson Wentz the same way you did in 2017. Think about that. 2017, you're going on to 2022 now. 21, 20, 19, 18, 17. That was 5 years ago. You have 5 years of wear and tear now on Carson Wentz, the recklessness he played with. So you were probably going to get diminished results on him anyway, and it's just been escalated by the fact that he had all these injuries. It's one thing if you're taking hits and you're not getting knocked out of games. He's taking hits, and it's ending seasons for him. So not only is it a physical deterioration, I think it's a strong mental deterioration that he no longer has the confidence to make the plays that he once made. And I think you see that in these situations. He can't carry the team. Did he have bad numbers this year? No, he didn't. His numbers were fine. What do you have, like 27 touchdowns, 7 interceptions?
Yeah, 27-7. He had statistically, he had a good year this year. But the problem is that when they looked to him to win them the game against the Jags and they got away from Jonathan Taylor, he was completely unable to do it.
Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. That's how we start our day. A little quarterback conversation. The 2 o'clock hour brought to you by BMW of Atlantic City. Closer than you think online, BMWAtlanticCity.com. I'm Mike Gill. Don't forget, you can watch today's show live on our YouTube channel. Use the YouTube app on your smart TV or phone, and we've got plenty more to go. A busy show. Sal Paolantonio at 3 o'clock today. All right, ranking the playoff quarterbacks. Yesterday, we gave you our list of the 14. ESPN put out their list today. So I want to compare our list. Josh did his, I did mine. We'll compare where we put those guys on the list and where ESPN's front office people ranked them and see where the discrepancies were. That's coming up next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Don't forget, we are live today at Chickies and Pete's in Atlantic City, where you can watch tonight's Flyers action as well as some good NBA. We've got the NBA, Portland and Denver, although Portland, no Dame Lillard. He is out for a little while now. See how that shakes up the trade market. We'll talk to Keith Smith in about an hour about that. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. All right, welcome back. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Bucks, Eagles this Sunday, 1 o'clock, 97.3 ESPN. We've got you covered. Starting at 4 with football at 4. Actually, I should say starting at 3 with Sal Paolantonio. Sal Pal at 3 o'clock today. Football at 4. Anthony Becht, former Tampa Bay Buccaneers tight end, will join me at 4:40. And in the 5 o'clock hour, we'll do a little fun with Todd Rank. We'll go through all the games and get his thoughts. We'll go back and forth, talk a little QBs. See that NBA trade today, by the way, there, Josh?
I was shocked.
It's my guy, Kevin Knox, on the move. I don't know if Atlanta's going to use him or not, but for whatever reason, they moved Cam Reddish to the Knicks. Now everybody's wondering what are the Hawks going to do? Like, what is their, what is the reason why they would make such a deal like this? Because Reddish is starting to play well. The problem with the Hawks is, I said all the time, they're like the Celtics from a couple of years ago. They got too many good players, not enough. They don't got any great players. I mean, they got Trae Young. No, he's great. I'm not saying that he's not, but they got too many good players, and then they don't get. This is the problem with trading Ben Simmons. You get back something in return, and then you just got a bunch of guys that are all good players, and then they don't get enough playing time. You can't find enough playing time for all these guys. So if you just give Ben Simmons away for 3 Jamokes, then you got 3 guys playing the same position. They fight because, John Collins, he doesn't like his role in Atlanta. You got Reddish. He was playing pretty well. There's not enough minutes for him down there. So that's the problem. That's why. I think in the end, I just thought about this. All this Ben Simmons stuff's coming down. And we're going to talk about this in an hour with Keith Smith. So keep it at lock for that. I don't want to get into a big NBA thing right now because I got this quarterback list in front of me I want to get into. But in the end, my prediction is this. We will be thanking Daryl Morey that he stood his ground. That's my prediction.
I agree with that. I think that's a very fair statement to say because Morey has a history of maximizing deals.
Too many people care about Tuesday night in January. Last night, they got beat by the Hornets. They showed Zippo passion, Zippo energy. They had won 8 games in a row. Guess what? That happens on Tuesday night in January, whatever yesterday was, Wednesday night in January after winning 8 in a row and guys coming in and out of the lineup. That happens. Believe it or not, sometimes you just don't have it. And last night they didn't have it. They just could not get it. They couldn't find it. Doesn't mean it's acceptable, but let me tell you something. Them losing that game with this current roster on Wednesday night in January ain't going to mean skedaddle when they play in May. Sorry to tell you. I hate to say it, but that's the gist. All right, we'll get back into the NBA in about an hour. All right, we did our list yesterday, all right?
Yep.
You got your list up? You got your list in front?
Got it right over here.
Okay. So ESPN.com ranked the playoff quarterbacks. And we did that yesterday, so we were ahead of them. They're copycatting off the Sports Bash, as usual. Most people do, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I saw Good Morning Football this morning, took the article I put on the website last night and made it one of their topics today.
I saw a station. Thank you, man. I saw a station in Washington is now doing football at 4. Can you believe the nerve?
Hey, you know what they say about copycats? It's the greatest form of flattery.
So here we go. Number 14 on the ESPN.com list is Ben Roethlisberger. So we got that.
All right,
we
fair.
paired that up right, okay?
Good start.
Yeah, so we're 1 for 1. This is like when you do your mock draft. How many do you think you can hit? So far, we're 1 for 1. I got the number 1 overall pick right. Although the number 1 overall pick this year might not be a slam dunk home run, right?
No, it might not. I mean, I think that Aiden Hutchinson looked horrible in his last game of the season.
Yeah, I agree. Number 13, they've got Jalen Hurts.
It's too low for me.
Yeah, I mean, I have Jalen at number 11 on my list. Where'd you have Hurts?
I got Hurts at 10.
Yeah, I have him 11. I had Mac Jones 13, so I'm off on that. You're off on that. Number 13 is Jalen Hurts. Number 12. I wish my internet worked a little better. I'm sorry if I'm kind of stammering through here because my internet just sucks at life right now. They got Mac Jones 12. I had him 13, so I'm not all that off base there.
I got Jones at 12, so I'm not too bad.
All right, so you got 2 out of 3.
Might be the last 2 out of 3, but keep going.
Number 11, Jimmy Garoppolo, which is what I have. No, I have Jimmy G number 12.
I have Stafford at 11.
Yeah, my 11 is Hurts. You had Stafford. Yeah, you had it. And I don't like Stafford that much, but you have him really low. All right, I'm going to have to bring this up on my phone because I can't get this.
Technology, just when you need it, it fails you. Somewhere Billy Schwein is telling us we need to get a newspaper.
Yeah, right. All right, there you go. Hurts was 13. Mac Jones 12. 11, they had Jimmy G. All right, number 10, they had Derek Carr. I had Carr 9.
Yeah, I have Hurts at 10.
And I have 10, I had Tannehill. So they like Tannehill better than I do. You don't like him at all.
Yeah, I had Tannehill lower.
Number 9, they have Tannehill.
Number 9, I have Jimmy G.
Yeah, and I have Carr. So I have Carr and Tannehill flipped for them. So I feel okay about that. Number 8, they went with Stafford, which is where I had Stafford.
I have Derek Carr at 8.
Yeah. So Stafford 8. Now think about that. Stafford is 8 out of 14 playoff quarterbacks.
He's right in the middle.
Well, that a little bit below, actually.
Well, right
the
below.
middle would be
7.
16, and 8 would be 6. Would be the middle. So he's actually below average when it comes to just the 14 playoff quarterbacks.
Right.
All right, number 7, we got Dak Prescott, number 7, which is where I had Murray.
I have Murray at 7 too. It's one of the ones you and I agreed on.
I would imagine Murray's next, right? Let's see. Number 6, Kyler Murray. So I had Murray and Dak flip-flopped.
Yeah, I have Dak a little higher.
I think Murray's just more dangerous with his legs right now than Dak is.
I think Dak's the better passer. I think he's the better, pure quarterback.
Yeah, I think he's the better passer. He's also got better weapons than Murray does.
That's true. Mm-hmm. No DeAndre Hopkins hurts.
They went with Murray 6. I went with Dak 6. I got Allen 5. They've got Burrow 5.
Yeah, I got Dak at my 5.
Burrow 5 is interesting. And they got Allen at number 4, and then number 4 I went with Burrow. So I think we have a lot of flips.
Yeah, I think 4 for Allen is just a little too high because he had a rough year this year.
Then they're 3. They went with Aaron Rodgers 3.
Really?
Yeah, they went Rodgers, Brady, Mahomes.
I feel like that's a little skewed. I mean, Mahomes hasn't had as good of a season as Rodgers or Brady.
Now, I think theirs has a lot to do with history, too. It's not just based on the season.
Well, that changes the conversation because if you're going off of history, then Brady should be 1, shouldn't he?
Probably. Brady, to me, I have him number 1 on my list. Now, you had him 2 and Rodgers 1, if memory serves.
That's
right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I have Brady, Rodgers, Mahomes. That was my 3. Burrow 4. Now, you can make an argument that Burrow being 4 is a little overzealous. He hasn't had a playoff game ever. So I would be okay if someone said, hey, you got Burrow a little high. I'm going to bank on – now, here's the problem. I think Cincinnati's boom or bust. In other words, I think they could lose to the Raiders because, okay, you know how I feel about this. Cincinnati's offensive line stinks. And yes, I think the one thing that the Raiders have that's the best part of the Raiders is their pass rush.
Correct.
It's the one thing that I do think the Raiders have that's pretty, consistent. The rest of their team, Carr's just up and down. The running game's up and down. They don't have a great, Waller has been, hurt. So he hasn't been a big part of the offense recently. They lost Ruggs. They don't have a great core of wide receivers. They're not great in coverage. What they're good at is rushing the passer. What is Cincinnati weak at? Now, this is boom or bust, though, because if Burrow buries them, I should say, it's that because he's going to be able to get the ball out. He's got so many playmakers. I feel like this game is one of the more intriguing ones with the weapons of Cincinnati against the pass rush of the Raiders. It's just not the sexiest game on the slate because you got Cincinnati, a small market, only the first time they've been in the playoffs in a long, long time, and the Raiders who just don't have that guy. So Burrow, to me, if you told me, hey, you got Burrow too high, I could concede and say, yeah, you're probably right about that.
Yeah, but to me, the thing with Burrow is I feel like Burrow, we don't know yet. So I'm not going to bury the guy before he ever plays a game. I would also say that the Rams are boom or bust because of the same reason. The quarterback, if Stafford has a great, when Stafford is on, he's really good. But when he's bad, he buries you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Stafford could be, those interceptions can come at inopportune times. It could be a big problem. I mean, Burrow, same situation though. Burrow he got sacked 50 plus times this year, if memory serves me. That's a big number, and against a team that can get to the quarterback. That's my one concern,
right,
with that game. So, if you told me I had Burrow too high, I don't have a problem saying, yeah, I can concede to that. The only other one, I guess, is I feel fine about all the rest of them. I mean, the only other one I guess would be no, I'm not. No, I feel fine about the rest of where I got everybody. Jimmy G's one guy who's been to the Super Bowl. I mean, are we slighting him? He's been to the Super Bowl, and he just proved that he can lead his team back.
And he did it injured.
I feel okay where I have him, though.
He's got that crazy tape job on his hand. I think that thing was pretty funny. Did you see the guy trying to high five him with his right hand? He's like, bro, not my hand. On Sunday, that was great.
Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. We'll do the head coaches coming up later on in the show. Don't forget Anthony Becht's going to be here in about 2 hours from now. Now, Becht is in the car today. I talked to him on the phone earlier. He is heading to Iowa State. You know why?
Bit of a trip.
You know why?
Why is that?
His son signed his letter of intent to play quarterback at Iowa State, and he is early admission.
So you approve then of that? That
no,
signing.
I already told him. I don't know. Ant went to WVU,
but that's Matt Campbell.
I do like Matt Campbell. In fact, he likes Matt Campbell enough that he decided to go to freaking Iowa State. Right?
So you found the one person who loves Matt Campbell more than you.
Well, I did ask him. I said, are you concerned the guy, Campbell's going to leave? I mean, everybody loves the guy. He said, Campbell loves Iowa State. I don't know. You like Campbell?
I like Campbell. I don't love him as much as you do, though.
Big fan.
You are a big fan.
So I did tell Becht, though, I said, you're bad parenting. I don't know how you, as a WVU guy, can allow your kid to go to Iowa State.
Oh, my goodness.
Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, coming up at 3 o'clock, Sal Paolantonio. Stick around. All right, welcome back. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN Live. Chickies and Pete's, Atlantic City, Tropicana. They'll have Super Wild Card Weekend. I would imagine Saturday, Sunday, going to be packed in here with all the football games on. So, Josh, have you seen – all right, there's this graphic that somebody made. It's a Sixers graphic, okay?
All right.
Which would you choose? And it's got like a bunch of different scenarios. Have you seen this?
No, I had not.
All right.
You
Which would you choose?
Get a raw, genuine reaction from me.
Good. Which would you choose? And people out there listening can text in 609 403 0973. 609 403 0973. These are your options, okay? Bridges never gets traded.
Okay.
Jimmy Butler never leaves.
All right.
Michael Carter Williams never regressed. That one's kind of weak.
That's out.
Kawhi Leonard misses the shot.
Ooh.
Allen Iverson wins a ring. Markelle Fultz stayed healthy. Ben Simmons, a three-point shooter.
All right.
Never traded for Tobias Harris. Or Jason Tatum, drafted by the Sixers. Which one of those would you choose?
Wow, I can only pick one.
That's it. One. Mikal Bridges never traded. That was to Phoenix draft night for Zaire Smith, who stunk.
Yeah, I mean that's a big miss, but that's not going to make it for me.
They also got the first-round pick, so
right. But they used that pick to get Tobias Harris.
That's true. Jimmy Butler never left. Now that one's tough because I think Jimmy Butler wanted to leave.
I think that I think Butler would have stayed if they would have traded Ben Simmons.
Which they weren't willing to do at that time, which you can't blame them. I mean, Ben Simmons, 23 years old or whatever at the time, you're going to say, hey, we lost, 70 games to get this guy, and we're going to trade him for Jimmy Butler, who, look, Jimmy Butler's really good. You ain't winning a championship with Jimmy Butler as your best player.
He got you to an NBA Finals.
Yeah, the bubble year.
That still counts. Don't be that guy.
Oh, I'm not holding the bubble as the same esteem. No way.
Listen, I think the bubble was one of the most difficult things for any athlete to deal with.
It was difficult. I'm not downplaying that. The difference to me is I don't think everybody handled it the same way, and therefore you had an uneven playing field.
Well, it's still if you handled your business right and you had the mental fortitude to survive, I give you credit.
Oh, I get that. But I'm just saying it was so detached from a normal setting. Like the next year, the Heat got knocked out in the first round because, like many people said, there were no road games. So a lot of the role players play a lot better at home than they do on the road, and you didn't have any road situations. And the Heat had a bunch of role players just played out of their minds in that run. So, not to mention the Lakers won the championship that year, and I thought they were kind of an overrated team. I still do. I mean, the whole Anthony Davis, LeBron thing. They won down in that bubble. I don't know that they win in a normal situation with that crew.
Anyway, the rest of the list.
Yeah, the rest of the list. Here you go.
I mean, if
Bridges never traded, Butler never left.
Right.
MCW, that one to me.
MCW just needs to be thrown in the trash.
Never regressed. I mean, even if he was the best player that he could, even if he was the rookie of the year player every single year, that wouldn't have helped. Kawhi misses the shot.
That's the
Iverson
one
wins the
juicy.
ring.
To me, the Iverson winning a ring and Kawhi missing the shot are the two juiciest ones on the list.
Okay. Fultz staying healthy, Ben shooting threes, Tobias never traded, and Tatum drafted by the Sixers. I would say Iverson winning a ring would be probably number one on my list because it's the only one on there that guarantees that you have a championship. Right? Anything else,
true.
You're still hoping. Iverson winning a ring means you've already won one at least in the last 20 years.
That's true. And also, if Iverson wins a ring, how does that change the franchise's trajectory?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, if they won, they got to the finals that year. They got beat by the Lakers. If they would have won that year instead of losing, would that have changed any of the following, years afterwards?
I
Not
think so.
sure.
There could have been a butterfly effect. Yeah, maybe the Lakers don't become the Lakers that we know them today. Maybe they had to make trades. Maybe the Sixers get a player that maybe they couldn't have gotten previously.
Maybe. So I would go Iverson wins a ring. I'm really I was a big Fultz fan. I would still be intrigued to see if Markelle Fultz never had any of the issues that he had. What kind of player he would have been had he just not had any of the problems. Who knows what the problems even were? I contend that Fultz somehow is a serviceable player, and he's not even half the player that he was. That's how good he could have been. You know what I mean?
I
He
hear you.
scores like 12 points a game, and he essentially stinks.
My thing is, I would have loved to see what would have happened if the Sixers got to the conference finals with those four guys, Embiid, Simmons, Harris, Butler. I'm very curious to know what happens. I'm not promising you they win a championship, but I'm curious to see how does that change things beyond.
Yeah, I think that the Kawhi miss might have been next, and then Ben Simmons, adding a 3-point shot.
I'm with you that the number one is Iverson winning a ring.
609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Let us know which one of those scenarios you would choose to happen. When we come back, Sal Paolantonio is here. He is covering the Eagles and the Bucks for ESPN down in Tampa. We will get into the matchups. What are the biggest storylines? What has to happen for the Eagles to win the game, and what cannot happen for the Eagles if they want to win the game? That's up next. Sal Paolantonio here on the Sports Bash, exclusively live on 97.3 ESPN and the YouTube channel. Don't go away. All right, we're live this hour at Chickies and Pete's in Atlantic City, inside the Trop in Atlantic City, where you can come on out and watch the Double Dip Super Wild Card Weekend. Saturday, 2 games, 3 games Sunday, one Monday night. All 6 right here on 97.3 ESPN this hour, brought to you by the expert solar team of New Jersey, EMT Solar Roofing and Solar Guardians. Start your solar journey today. Learn more. Visit espnsolar.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash, and we are here till 6, of course. Anthony Becht, who was a first-round pick of the Jets. He played for the Bucks. He actually stepped in and did Bucks radio last week. He's going to join me at 4:40 today to give us a little perspective on the Buccaneers and what's happening down there in Tampa. Sal Paolantonio will be in Tampa, ESPN's senior national correspondent, covering the Eagles and the Bucks on Super Wildcard Weekend, and he joins me right now with some perspective on a pretty interesting matchup here on Super Wildcard Weekend. Sal Pal, welcome back, man. Yeah, and you got one I think that is just a little under the radar in terms of the storylines here. I mean, you got Tom Brady, 44 years old, going for his 8th Super Bowl here. 8th Super Bowl at the age 44 season. And across from him, you got a kid who's never been into a Super Bowl, or a playoff game ever. The dynamics of these two quarterbacks here, I think, is a really interesting one. In terms of being aggressive, the first time they played, they only ran 9 times, Philadelphia. 1 time in the first half, Miles Sanders. He had 8 carries in the second half. I would imagine, Sal Pal, that they are going to expand the run game. And will that include Jalen Hurts? He's only run, for 27 yards per game after averaging 60 yards a game since that ankle injury. That game is this Sunday, 1 o'clock, right here on 97.3 ESPN. You're right. I mean, Hurts, I think, has to really be a true dual threat in this game. And you asked the question, like, how much involvement does Hurts have to have for them to win this game? Do you feel like Hurts has to almost lead them to victory? Yeah. 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 I guess the follow-up to that would be, do the Eagles have the personnel to pull it off? Right, exactly. Whatever you did the first time, you can't replicate. With that, defensively, let's stay there, because I would imagine, Sal Pal, that Slay will be, hanging out with Evans. What happens with Gronk? Because the first time they played, Gronk didn't play and Howard bit them. And then you got Fournette, who got 6 catches. So it seems that the Eagle linebackers are going to have a tall task in this one. The first game, Sal, 39-56. That was the time of possession for Tampa Bay. I mean, that's 40 minutes of time to 20 minutes of time. Can't win a game like that. How does the Eagles' run game, and look, you're getting to go to Tampa, and you're not going to get good weather, my friend. I'm sorry to tell you, you're not going to get to sit on the beach the day before that game. It's going to be windy and rainy is what I'm hearing down there. How does that all factor in to changing the script from the 6th week of the season? Well, you, Mm-hmm. By the way, that number started at 7, Sao Paulo. It's up to 9 all of a sudden. It feels like people think Brady's got a little walk in the park here this weekend. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and look, the Eagles have an opportunity because I'm wondering what that number would look like with an Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin. I mean, Godwin's a big part of their offense. That's not. He had 98 catches this year, and Brown crushed him the first game, 9 catches, 93 yards. You take those two guys out, does that even the playing field at all? Right. Yeah. I was going through that earlier and said the same thing as you got Brady and Rodgers, and then the next most accomplished guy in the NFC is Garoppolo. I mean, so it's other than those two, the rest of the field is, I don't know that Dak Prescott, I think, has won one playoff game. Other than that, I don't think you got another quarterback on the NFC side that's even won a game other than Garoppolo. Isn't that wild? All right, so let's get down to business here. All right. You said, I think last week, that you would have considered Lane Johnson as an MVP type of guy. At the end of this day on Monday, if the Eagles' offensive line is the MVP of this game, does that mean they won? Mm-hmm. Well, Brady threw for 81% completions the first time around. That happens again. You're looking at an off season because you can't give up 81%. And you said blitz. You got to get to them early and see what happens. Roll the dice a little bit. Something different. All right, Sal Pell. I would agree. The game was 28-22, but the game was not that close. The score was not indicative. Whatever Tampa was doing that night, I don't know if they had their mind on cheesesteaks down on, South Street. Yep. Right. Well, I would say that second half, if there's anything to take, if Sirianni put that in his back pocket and said, you know what, we ran the ball pretty well against a team people said we couldn't run on in that first meeting. They ran the ball in the second half against that team. And then from that game forward, they started to really run the ball. If they run the ball the way they have been in this game, I think you're going to see a much different style of game. I don't know if you're going to see a win, but I think you're going to see a different style of game because they're not going to have the ball for 40 minutes like they did the first time. And that's a big difference. Yeah. He's Sal Paolantonio, ESPN senior national correspondent. You'll be able to see him all over ESPN television, getting ready for the Eagles and the Buccaneers this Sunday, 1 o'clock, right here on 97.3 ESPN. Johnny G, the Burger Realty team, thanks to those guys, as always, delivering us a full season here of a Sal Pal Thursday special because he'll be flying to Tampa's Raymond James Stadium for this weekend's matchup. All right, man, up close and personal. Hopefully you're not talking to Tom Brady after this game. All right, there he is, Sal Paolantonio, ESPN this Sunday, 1 o'clock. You'll see him pregame leading up to it. And we, of course, we'll talk to him on Monday, as he just said. Eagles, Bucks. That's the story. He just heard his three keys. The early lead for the Eagles. They got down in that first game. I think it was 21-7. They're down in that game. The difference to me in this game could be what happened in the second half. And what happened in the second half, it's one of those things. It might have been a little too late in that game, but they may have found something in that game that they can stick in their back pocket and say, look, if we get this team again, we found something we can do to this team. And I think that will be the story. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. When we come back, there was a trade in the NBA today. What could be next for the Hawks? Plus, Woj reported last night some new news on Ben Simmons. And no news sometimes is good news. We'll get the latest with Keith Smith. SpotTrack.com covers the NBA. We'll get his thoughts on some possible trade scenarios. Now that the Hawks have made a move, what's next? Because they trade Cam Reddish today, and his name has been mentioned in a lot of these Ben Simmons rumors. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Anthony Becht at 4:40 today, former Tampa Bay Buccaneer tight end. Football at 4 with Andrew DeCecco and Todd Rank at 5 tonight here on the Sports Bash. I'm Mike Gill, back with Keith Smith, NBA Insider, coming up next. All right, welcome back. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, Chickies and Pete's, Atlantic City. Don't forget, Saturday, Sunday, you've got all the pro football super wild card weekend. The NBA is starting to heat up. I saw Keith Smith tweet, they were going to do, I guess, a podcast or something. There's not a lot going on. And then the next thing you know, a trade, avoided trade, Ben Simmons' agent shows up. Rich Paul was sitting courtside last night at the Sixers game. So there's that. Oh, and by the way, Dame Lillard got hurt and might be out for quite some time. Just another average day in the association. Keith Smith, SpotTrack.com, set to break it down with us. What's going on, Keith? Let's start with the trade. Reddish goes to New York. Kevin Knox, he goes to Atlanta. Kind of bring us inside the mind, I guess, of the Hawks here, because everybody's now saying, all right, what are they thinking in this deal? Right. I mean, you get a situation between the two teams that are currently 11th and 12th, flipping players with each other. They played each other as the 4-5. They're both on the outside of the playoffs looking in right now. So that's that. All right. Number two, what's going on in Atlanta? They trade Reddish, and you just talked about it, playing time. A lot of guys down there, seemingly, they got a lot of similar players. And is that kind of the situation that Daryl Morey is trying to avoid by trading Ben Simmons for just a bunch of role players? You could get three guys back in return, but there's not enough playing time for them. And that's what seems like what was going on in Atlanta. Obviously, now, do you think the Hawks are done, or do you think this John Collins has come up? They have interest in Ben. It was reported that Morey wants to send Harris there. That doesn't seem like it's a possibility. But do the Hawks continue to stay engaged? All right, Dame Lillard. How does that, if at all, change the complexion of February 10th coming up? Keith Smith with us, spottrack.com, looking at the NBA. We got less than a month to the deadline. Yesterday, Rich Paul in Philly with Elton Brand, Daryl Morey. Doesn't sound like anything got accomplished. Just a free meal. Right, and obviously that Harris stuff, that's pie in the sky, right? No one's taking Tobias Harris with Ben Simmons. That's over $80 million of contracts that somebody would need to take on. Right. All right, Keith. Last night we saw on the court Kyrie. How is this situation in Brooklyn possibly fluid now? Um, you got less than a month to the deadline, and obviously we saw a trade today. The fact that there was one today, do you anticipate that gets other teams now a little antsy? Mm-hmm. Right. All right, and then finally, Boston. I feel like we touched on it a week ago, but they're still hanging in the 10th spot. They've played a little better. Is it likely or less likely that Brown and Tatum will be Celtics together after February 10th? Follow him on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA for everything that's happening with the trade deadline. And obviously, we're starting to heat up. We had a trade today, Cam Reddish from Atlanta to the Knicks. So now the Knicks, obviously, they got a couple Dookies over there, Barrett, Reddish. I would imagine you're going to start to hear Zion's name attached to that Knicks team pretty, I guess, even more than you already do. You think Zion's going to play it all this year? Probably not. Right. Meanwhile, Ja Morant, man, what a treat he is to watch. I know, it's easy to say in hindsight. Now, I was not a big Zion guy coming out of college. I would have definitely taken Morant, but there's no way the Pelicans, they would have had at that night, they would have got so much backlash if they didn't take Zion. Like, I get the marketing purposes of it, but man, um, Morant right now is just a joy to watch. And Zion seems like he's got nothing but injury issues. Nice. All right, he's Keith Smith, and of course, we'll keep our eye on all things NBA and the trade deadline. Sixers lose last night to the Hornets. They'll play tomorrow and Saturday, and then Monday afternoon at 2, and we'll have those games here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Keith, appreciate it, man. That's Keith Smith, spottrack.com. He's got a whole piece right now on all the Eastern Conference teams' thoughts at the trade deadline. Check that out. You can follow him on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA to get all the latest. All right, when we come back, the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN on this Thursday edition. All right, yesterday we did the quarterbacks. Today, I'm going to rank the playoff head coaches. And I'm imagining this one's going to be a little controversial. All right. I'm going to get some people texting, tweeting at me at Mike Gill Show. I can take it. I know it's my opinion. You might not agree with it, but I think my list is going to be cause a little bit of an uproar in the streets of South Jersey. Sports Bash coming back on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Let's do it. The 14 coaches in the NFL. Now, who would I want on my sideline? That's how I'm ranking them. Not who's the best, not who is the most accomplished. These are the 14 in order that I would want on my sideline coaching the game on Sunday, 1 o'clock in the NFL playoffs. Josh, I got my 14. You got yours?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go.
Are we going in from 14 to 1 again?
There's only one way to do it. You can't reveal your first one first.
Well, I'm looking forward to it because I feel like you and I are going to have a lot of fun with the bottom of the list more than the top of the list.
Well, I know 14 is going to ruffle everybody's feathers.
All right.
I got McCarthy, 14. I'm not joking. I'm not doing it to ruffle. I don't care about the Cowboys. I could care less. People who listen to the show know the Cowboys I could care less about. Giants are the team to me is Eagles, Giants. It's not Eagles, Cowboys. It's Eagles, Giants. I have said over the years, I have had Cowboys number 1 in my Fine Five. I have said over and over they have the most talented roster. And every year what holds them back, I said it with Garrett, and I'm saying it again. The problem I have with the Cowboys is not their roster. Their coach is a fool. He's an idiot. And when it comes to the playoffs, you cannot get out-coached. And they will lose in these playoffs because they will be out-coached. I will take every coach in the NFC field over Mike McCarthy in a big situation. When we come in here on a Monday, and I don't know if they're going to lose this week or next week, but when they lose, because they ain't winning the Super Bowl, I'm going to tell you that right now, when they lose, it will be something he does, and that's why he's last.
He's low on my list, but my 14 is Rich Bisaccia. I'm not convinced that this team is winning because of him as much as the players rallied around each other.
See, I got Bisaccia next, but I don't agree with you there. I got to imagine that this group of players enjoys playing for this guy. I mean, they could have folded the tent many times, and I think this guy deserves a ton of credit. I don't know how great of an X and O guy. I don't even know that matters. That's the problem. McCarthy doesn't do anything. He doesn't call plays on offense. He's not the offensive play caller. All he has to do is manage the game.
Right.
And he can't do that right. Bisaccia, same thing. All he basically does is create the culture. And that's the big thing. You create the culture. And I think Bisaccia's done a great job of creating the culture there. That's why he's ahead of McCarthy. Neither one of them do anything. They're both just standing on the sideline on game day. Bisaccia doesn't call anything. Well, he was a special teams coach, right?
Yes.
So he's not calling plays on offense or defense.
No.
He's just managing. He's essentially managing the game, and he's better at it than McCarthy is.
I got McCarthy 13 for me.
All right, so you got McCarthy. We got those flipped. I got Kingsbury 12. Kingsbury's another one. I didn't love him at Texas Tech. When they hired him, I thought he'd be a failure, and he's proven me wrong there. I still don't think he's great. He makes a lot of mistakes. Put it this way. As a game manager, he stinks, and he's still better than McCarthy is. That says how – seriously, take McCarthy and the Cowboys thing out. Kingsbury is not a good game manager, and he undressed McCarthy when they played each other.
That's correct.
Kingsbury, to me, is, he's a smart offensive guy, but not a good game manager. I got him 12.
I also have him at 12.
Okay. Number 11, I got Nick Sirianni, number 11. Look, Nick's done a great job of changing, in midseason from a pass offense to a run offense. I think he's a good leader. I think he's done a really good job from about week 6 on here. But he still has a lot of stuff to show. I mean, he's only had one season. I will say this. I think he's made good adjustments in season. To go from a pass first to a run team, it shows that he's willing to make the adjustments, and I've been impressed by that.
I also have Sirianni at 11.
Oh, okay. All right. We're on the same page there. Number 10, I went with Zach Taylor of the Cincinnati Bengals. I think Taylor's a good offensive mind. He's got a lot of weapons out there. I don't know how great of a game manager is. They have some issues in game management too, timeout, that kind of stuff. But as an offensive mind, I think he's pretty good.
I agree. I got him in the same spot too.
How about that? Did you look at my list?
I can't even see your list if I wanted to.
Number 9, Sean McDermott. McDermott's a defensive-minded guy. I think he does a really good job overall. They do have some mistakes in the game management side of things. All these coaches make mistakes in game management, but him being a defensive guy, he's a little bit more conservative. I like McDermott, but there's a good field of coaches here.
I also have him at 9. Keep going.
Wow, how about that? Number 8, I've got Sean McVay. Obviously offensive mind. I think he makes mistakes in game management a lot. I think he's overrated. That people think he's this boy wonder, boy genius. He's the 8th guy in my field. I don't think he stinks, but he's certainly not a top 10 coach in the NFL.
I have Matt LaFleur at 8.
Ooh, okay. That's way lower than I had Matt LaFleur.
I think LaFleur has benefited from having Aaron Rodgers.
All right. So did McCarthy. That didn't help him all that much. Shanahan, number 7. Look, for as much mistakes Shanahan, he got destroyed for the thing that happened in Atlanta. They made it to a Super Bowl. He brought a team to a Super Bowl in Atlanta as a coordinator. He got a team to a Super Bowl here. So I got Shanahan, number 7. Another one like Sirianni. He understands what his team is. He's changed the complexion of that team. I think he's a little overrated, but in this field, I have him at number 7.
I have McVay at 7.
You have McVay at 7. All right, we will finish this list up a little bit later on in the show. Keep it locked to the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. When we come back, Andrew DeCecco will join us for football at 4. That's the list so far. We'll do 6 down the rest of the way here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. Andrew DeCecco with the matchups to watch, where he thinks the Eagles could have an advantage. That is next. Plus at 4:40 today, Anthony Becht joins us, former Tampa Bay Buccaneers tight end. Don't go away. And then at 5 o'clock, Todd Rank. We'll talk playoffs with him and Rob Maaddi tonight at 5:25. Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you locally by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. Football at 4, Andrew DeCecco is here, and as Andrew enters the conversation, breaking news in the NFL, Dave Culley has just been fired by the Houston Texans. So just when you thought, hey, if you made it this far, that you were free, 4-13, Dave Culley fired after just one season in Houston. I don't know what they were expecting down there, Andrew. I know it's a little bit of a surprise. I mean, they won 4 games. The quarterback situation was a mess. I thought they were highly competitive, but fired after 1 year. A little bit of a surprise, I guess. I don't know what their expectations were, though. Right. Right. The quarterback situation there obviously clouded the whole season for Houston. They played hard. They pulled off a couple upsets of the 3rd pick of the draft. So there's another opening in the NFL right there. All right. We know we got Super Wild Card weekend, and we got a lot of focus on that. Obviously, I feel like one of the big stories in this game is the discrepancy in accomplishments in the quarterbacks here. You got Brady with 7 Super Bowls. You got Hurts making his first ever playoff appearance here. Just listening to Nick Sirianni throughout the last couple of weeks, we got Hurts with this injury with the ankle. He hasn't run all that much, but he continues to kind of talk about him as a passer and how far he's come. Then you hear Bruce Arians in his meeting with the media yesterday talk about how impressed he was with Hurts as a passer. And I know you're a guy who studies the draft a lot, and I'm just interested in how far you think he's come as a passer from his college days to where he's going to start a game on Sunday against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Andrew, what do you think his strengths are in the pass game? I mean, is he an accurate passer? Does he have a strong arm? Does he have a good deep ball? What are some of the things that has made him a better passer? Because I think it's evident if you watch him from last year to this year, he has become way more comfortable, I feel like, watching him in the pass game. So what are some of the things that you think that he does well in the pass game? That's a good point, too. Last year, Peterson, the year before that, he's in Oklahoma. The year before that, he's in Alabama. To finally get a little bit of stability should really help Jalen Hurts. That said, as a passer, how much of an impact do you feel he needs to have as a runner for them this Sunday? Yeah, 27 yards a game since the injury is what he's running for. He was around 60 yards a game pre-injury, so they're really going to need that. I want to get your take, though. I was talking about this earlier, Andrew, in that the first time they played, that game 28-22, I don't think the score was really indicative, but does Nick Sirianni put in his back pocket and say, you know what? We ran the ball against them in the second half of that game. Does he take some solace to say, we found who we were in the second half of that game, and can that be the thing that really changes how this game goes? Because if you remember, they had the ball for 40 minutes. You had the ball for 20. And I think if you run the ball like you did in the second half, that could really change the style of this game. Mm-hmm. All right, let's look at some of these matchups. Get your thoughts. The Eagles' offensive line, obviously, I contend, if they're the MVP of this game, that's how Philadelphia says we won because our line was the MVP. How do they, can they win that matchup with this Tampa Bay defensive front? Andrew Checo, football 4, and obviously that's the big matchup in this game. That offensive line against the big front, Tampa Bay. They are one of the best. They only give up 93 yards on the ground. Now, some of that is, and I guess teams don't try to run the ball on them all that much. Is it because they're that good or they're always playing from behind? I guess that remains to be seen. That's always the big thing with these stats. 93 yards a game. Well, they don't give up a lot of run. They're obviously pretty good against the run, but teams don't run the ball on them. I think we looked it up yesterday. They give up the least. They have had the least amount of carries against them the entire season of all the teams in the league. So can Philadelphia find running room against this defense? That's going to be a big storyline. The other question will be, Andrew, which offensive player, if they can't get the running game going, they say, hey, look, Jalen, we need you here. We need to do something. Who's the guy that they can maybe look to in the passing game? Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you look at the Philly pass game, it's Goddard and Smith. They're usually the two guys. But I like that you brought Gainwell up because I really feel that they've done a much better job passing the ball to their backs here in the last couple of weeks. And I don't know how much more they implement that. That remains to be seen. On the defensive side of the ball, all right, big problems over there when it comes to, I think, Gronk. If you are John Gannon, is he the biggest problem that your defense has this week? Yeah, right. That's a good breakdown. I agree with you because let's just say hypothetically, okay, somebody has the game of their life and takes Gronk out or at least hangs with them. Fournette's a very, dangerous pass catcher. He had 6 catches the first time they played, and I don't know that the Eagles have an answer for him either out of the backfield. Ah, that's a good one. You brought a good name up there, Epps. I'm interested in what because Maddox was a guy. Somebody texted in wondering, hey, can you use Maddox, on Gronk, or can I don't think that size is a matchup that you really want to go with. Maddox is a tough guy, but he's very small when it comes to that kind of matchup. You would imagine, right? Slay is going to get matched up with Evans. So I guess you can get creative with some of those guys, but you just put Epps' name into the mix. That's a guy that I kind of forgot about. Do you anticipate Slay and Evans matching up? Like, does he follow him around? Right. Okay, so a lot of people, Andrew, have brought up the night that the Saints shut the Bucks out. A lot of A gap, double A gap blitzes, man up on the outside. The question would be, do the Eagles have the personnel to basically mimic that game plan? Nope, you're right about that. Andrew DeCecco, Football at 4, InsideTheBirds.com. You can check out all of his coverage of this Eagles-Bucks game. He'll have plenty more leading you in to this Eagles matchup against the Buccaneers. First time, 28-22. Tampa Bay went up. They kind of put their foot off the gas. But if you remember in that game, that was the game that Antonio Brown got hurt. He's gone from this game. No Godwin. How does that affect their offense? And does it affect it enough to kind of, even the playing field? That's right. And you got to score points, got to get the 6. Can't settle for the field goals. We'll see it all unfold. Andrew DeCecco at A DeCecco NFL, InsideTheBirds.com. And, of course, he'll be back on Tuesday as we take a look back at this game and hopefully getting ready for the divisional round. We shall see. Andrew, appreciate the time as always, man. All right, that's Andrew DeCecco. His Football at 4 is brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. All right, when we come back, we've got JR's pick for the wild card round, his favorite play this weekend. All 6 wild card games in play. Stick around for that. Sports Bash plus Anthony Becht joins us in 19 minutes from now. We'll finish off our list of the top coaches as well, plus Todd at 5 and Rob Maaddi in the 5 o'clock hour, about 5:30 tonight. And then our final segment of the night, we'll finish off the list of the coaches. Your thoughts, 609-403 0973 live at Chickies and Pete's here in Atlantic City at the Tropicana, which is where you can watch Super Wild Card Weekend. I know everybody's like, where am I going to watch these games? Well, I got about 50 televisions in front of me that says, why not do it here? Flyers tonight. Who are the Flyers playing tonight? Penguins? Bruins. Wrong, black and yellow. Flyers, Bruins tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Puck drops at 7 o'clock. You can hear all the action with Tim Saunders and Steve Coates. Back with more Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. 7 Sports Bash Live this hour brought to you by Prop Swap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how. Go to PropSwap.com. Download the Prop Swap app. You can make some money with some of these picks. JR, WagerPro.com, and the Wager Pro app is here as Super Wild Card Weekend is upon us. And I bet you it's the best time of the year to make some money, man. You got Super Wild Card Weekend. You only need to zone in on 6 games now. And JR from WagerPro.com and the Wager Pro app is here to tell us his thoughts on the Super Wild Card Weekend. JR, welcome back, man. Yeah, let's take a look. We got 6 games in all. They're all kind of interesting in their own little way here. I guess, I want to start off on Saturday where, you got this division matchup between Buffalo and New England. They've played twice and how that factors in to betting this game. I think the line was like 4 the last time I've seen it. It's kind of moving 4.5 back and forth there. Patriots on the road, supposed to be very cold. So give us a little insight on this one. All right. So with that, we'll move to Sunday. There's one for Saturday. Let's go to Sunday because it appears that nobody's given Pittsburgh a shot. It's a big number, 12.5, but it feels like everybody's picking against Pittsburgh. But if you have chronicled on this segment through most of the year, now that's changed a little bit in recent weeks, but Kansas City was not a big cover team for about the first 10 weeks of the season. All right, jrwagerpro.com. We got so much happening between now. You got the Super Wild Card weekend. I'll give you the floor as kind of your favorite game of the weekend and everything you got going on tonight. All right, jrwagerpro.com and the Wager Pro app. It's a great weekend if you want to get involved. He gave us another winner last week with that Steeler game under the number against the Ravens. It even went to overtime, and they went under the number. So we'll check that out and make sure that you guys are paying attention to those numbers because they were moving around. The Eagles were 9 when we talked to Sal Powell earlier today. It's down to 8.5 right now, so it's been moving back and forth. They go. And there you go. All right, Sports Bash is live, 97.3 ESPN. Got the Eagles side of things with Andrew. On the other side, what do the Bucs do really well? We're going to talk to former Tampa Bay Buccaneer Anthony Becht, who did Buccaneer radio. He actually called the Eagle game Sunday night for Westwood One Radio nationally. And then he called the Buccaneers game for – I want to say it's 96.5 DAE in Tampa is the flagship station, I believe, for – actually, I think the flagship station for the Buccaneers is 98 Rock in Tampa. He was on the call doing the color on Saturday night. Now, he doesn't typically do Buccaneer radio games, but there were some COVID situations down there, so he stepped in and did the color, and somebody else stepped in and did the play-by-play. So he called their game Sunday against Carolina and called Philly's game Saturday night against Dallas. So he's seen both these teams, although the Philly team he saw Saturday night, different than the one we're going to see this Sunday. We're going to break it all down with Anthony Becht, first-round pick in the NFL, does pre- and post-game for the Jets, Buccaneers, national radio, you name it, he's on it. He's next right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
All right, Mike, you got 1 minute, okay? Yeah. Twenty seconds. Yeah, I'll do it, but I do it after I play the music.
All right, we're back live, 97.3 ESPN, the Eagles and Bucks this weekend. Sunday at 1 o'clock, you can hear Merrill and Mike call all the action. And the Sports Best this hour is brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet, take your profit. Find out how. PropSwap.com. Download the PropSwap app today. Now, Anthony Becht last weekend called the Eagles and Cowboys Saturday night. He then was doing the Bucks and Carolina Panthers on Sunday, and now I think he's driving to Iowa. My man's putting some mileage on his own self, his own mental. What's going on, Ant?
Well, I lose money when I'm driving to Iowa because I got to pay gas 5 different times on my way up from Florida. What's up, brother?
Everything's good, and I know this game's kind of interesting. You know, the fact that these two teams met up. Now, you saw Philadelphia Saturday. You saw kind of a skeleton crew on Saturday night. You saw Tampa Bay on Sunday. Now, the week before, now you played for the Jets and you played for the Bucks, so that was like the Becht Bowl there. They struggled in that game against the Jets, but last week it seemed like they were back firing on all cylinders against Carolina.
Well, what happened was right before the half, they actually did a little tempo offense that got them on the board finally because they couldn't drum anything up because of some of the pressure that the Panthers were bringing. And then the second half, they finished the whole second half with tempo, which helped them. So, listen, they got some issues now. They're trying to get healthy. Offensively, everybody knows Godwin is not playing ACL. So right now it's Mike Evans and it's Gronk, and they really don't have that other receiver. It's going to be a complementary piece, whether it's Scotty Miller, Rashard Perryman, Tyler Johnson. These guys are decent, but really just they haven't flowed really in the offense much. And Leonard Fournette, who's expected to be back as well, didn't play in that game as well. So that's just the offensive side. Defensively, Shaq Barrett was on COVID protocol, plus he was injured. JPP's been hurt. Levante David is questionable. They don't know if he's going to play in the game as well. So the only good thing is that their secondary is completely back, and this will be the first game that they're all back since the opener versus the Cowboys. So, look, this is a tougher road right now for the Bucks, but this is a much different team. The Bucks are when they played Philly, and also from the other side, Philly. Philly is a much better team than they were the first time they played, and I actually think this is a really good matchup for Philly. A little tougher for the Bucks.
Yeah, I want to get your opinion on that because the first time they played, Week 6, Thursday night, basically Tampa blows the doors off of them in the first half of that game. They kind of take their foot off the gas a little bit, it seemed like. Brown got hurt in that game, and of course he's not there. And then Philly got back into that game on the scoreboard by running the ball. And then after that, it kind of unlocked the key to, hey, maybe we should run the ball. You wonder, Ant, how much Sirianni remembers what he did in that game, because they ran the ball pretty good in that game against Tampa later on in that game.
Well, that's what they are. I mean, they have to run the ball. The Jalen Hurts X factor with the quarterback running and that whole QB read option. I mean, nobody's more dangerous than him right now, but, he can pass. I mean, he's a legitimate bona fide weapon, and take away the top tier defense versus the run. They are not the same defense right now. The Bucks are, and this is going to be a problem. especially on the edges, if Shaq Barrett and JPP are banged up or still can't play full go, they've had issues stopping the run the last couple weeks, and now they're going to go up against a team that is the best in the NFL at doing it. So, and you're going to get a lot. If you go back and watch that Carolina game, a lot of the success in the pass game was quick throws, receiver screens, and some of that RPO drawing down the linebackers and trying to hit those holes in the middle of the field. And Carolina has some success with that. So that's just, from a defensive standpoint. I think from you guys defensively on the other side, I think this is, the one place Tom doesn't want to deal with anything is pressure up the middle.
Right.
And Fletcher Cox and Hargrave have to have their best game of the year. And whoever that auxiliary rusher is up the middle of the field, because Brady is not going to hang on to the ball and wait for somebody. He's going to throw it in the dirt. He's going to go down and take a sack. And if you can't get to him up the middle and disrupt him, you won't win. The problem now is they have the best O-line, in my opinion, one of the best in the NFL, who's not going to make it easy for you. But it can be done, and it's been proven.
Yeah, and what'd you think of Milton Williams last week? He was the one guy, I guess, that if you watch the Eagles' defense, it's going to play in this game that played in that game. You wonder if they saw enough from him to give him a bigger role. I mean, he's played a lot this year, but I thought he really jumped out Saturday night against a good Cowboys line.
Yeah, I probably called the kid's name out 4 or 5 times. If you're calling defensive tackles' names out, they got to be doing something good. Normally, you don't say much of those guys because none of their stats show up. They don't really, you really can't tell what they're doing until after. Maybe they're holding up a lineman or trying to get the backer to scrape free, so they're doing their job. But man, he was in the backfield and he was going against their starting offensive line for quite a bit of that time throughout the game. So, yeah, I tell you, he was quite a surprise. La Tech kid, right, out of Louisiana Tech.
Yep.
Yeah, he's listen. He should be part of the rotation. If he can have success against, Zach Martin and some of those guys, then why not play him?
Here's my thing. All right, Anthony Becht, by the way, was a tight end in the NFL, first-round pick. So that's your position. You coach that position, you play that position, and then, of course, there's Gronk. The Eagles can't guard. If you were playing tight end this week, they'd have trouble defending, right? I mean, so
yeah.
How do you defend a guy when you don't have the personnel to do it?
I listen, I think it's easy, but I don't see anybody doing it. And this is a week to me where it's got to happen. But for some reason, teams give free access up the field to Gronk. They don't ever disrupt him off the line of scrimmage. People don't understand. This guy, as good as he's playing, he's old. He's not as fast as he once was. The majority of his bursts and explosion is the initial snap count getting off the line of scrimmage. Every single week, teams allow him to go. A defensive end is literally standing right in front of him. Instead of knocking him off his track, they want to pass rush because they think they're going to get to Brady and they're going to get a sack. Last time I checked, nobody's really sacking Brady these days. Why is that? He's getting the ball out of his hands. Middle pressure and get your end or whoever's playing the edge to slam Gronk every single snap, then you rush. I promise you, they only got Evans. He's not the best guy as far as getting away from dudes. He's really good with the contested catches, one-on-one stuff. Slay can do something positive against him. Size-wise, he's obviously going to take him. But if anywhere Gronk's on the field and you give him a free release, shame on you and your defense and your staff for allowing that to happen, because what's going to happen is he's going to shred you. And that's what he did against Carolina, and that's what he did the week before. So Keep an eye on that. If anybody wants to watch something in this game, if you're an Eagles fan, which is the majority of your listening audience, keep an eye on Gronk off the line of scrimmage. If they let him get free access, you deserve every bit of getting hammered that he's been doing for the rest of the weeks of the season.
Well, O.J. Howard hammered them in week 6. Gronk wasn't even there. John Gannon gave up 81% passing. I mean, he has struggled with the quarterbacks, with the good quarterbacks. You play Tyler Heineke and Jake Fromm and Garrett Gilbert. They've been fine. Have you ever been a part of a team where there's been such a disparity in the success of one unit based on the level of competition?
Well, it's not going to matter this week because Brady's been doing it against everybody. So you better have a plan
Right.
put together to do it. And I'm telling you, you don't have a lot of options. You're not going to distort coverage and confuse Brady and make him look
No.
out there like, oh, what's going on? He's the smartest dude on the field, period, offense and defense. So don't try to outsmart him, okay? Play him straight up, but you got to find a way to get him off his pocket. They want to funnel everything so that he can step 1, 2 steps up, and then from there, if he doesn't get it out by that second step, it's game over. So if you're going to allow their receivers and tight ends to get released and do all those things, you might as well take away and try to disrupt Gronk. I would get in the face of Evans, and then I would match up and play the other side with those guys and let them be the guys making the plays and let them figure out how to make it work. Because right now it's just it was kind of calling that game. Obviously, I was calling the game for the Bucks radio network, so it didn't matter. But as a football guy watching it, it just bothered the hell out of me that the Panthers just didn't. They just completely, and everybody's doing it. It wasn't just them. It was just that game. But you got to. The guy is not going to run past you anymore. But if he knows how to get in open spaces, he knows how to work off guys. If you get him off a step at the line of scrimmage, dude, that's like literally. That takes him away from the route, in my opinion, unless they're going to dink and dunk him. So we'll see what happens. Don't try to outsmart this dude. Just play your base stuff and try to get those wrinkles in and try to be effective there and make somebody else beat you.
Now, you saw Philly's basically reserve offensive line, and they still were able to run the ball. So you wonder how much of the way they run is schemed. Obviously, they have a lot of talent with Maaddi, Johnson. Kelsey's probably a Hall of Famer. They're very good. Dickerson, I mean, they're very good up front, but they must be able to scheme the heck out of running the ball because even with the backups, they got 5th and 6th guys playing too. You got to remember their guards, they're down to their 4th and 5th guards in some areas on the right side. I mean, they've gone through guys over there. So they must have a really good scheme on what they do. You wonder, can they run the ball, and is that enough to beat Tampa Bay? Are they going to have to make plays in the pass game?
Well, yeah. I mean, ultimately to win the game they will, but they can stay in the game running the football. I don't think the Bucs stop their run. Now, if they're going to get in 3 tight end sets, they've probably done that more than normal. And then of course the 2 tight end sets. If you start condensing things, okay, now you give them a chance. I would run more spread out, and the style of run that they have, along with the ability of the quarterback to pull it out and how good they are at that, and their downhill backs. I mean, I like Gainwell. I think he's very quick. He's hard to tackle. And, is Miles Sanders' status? Is he a good to go for this one?
He practiced today, nothing on his hand, so I would imagine he's going to play. The problem with him is he fumbles a lot with a healthy hand. Who knows with the status that they have, but I would imagine he plays.
Yeah, but, they can wrinkle some of those receivers and utilize that speed, but I mean, less guys in the box, the better. And then when they start bunching it up, you got to become a passer, and he's got to be really good on the layups, man. He's got to those little routes within 10 yards. He's got to play his best game, and when he takes his shot, he's got to hit 1 or 2 of them. If he gets 5 in a game, he's got to hit 2, and he can't have any turnovers. Yeah. I mean, that honestly, that's the way it's got to be. Even with 1 turnover, I think that's going to be a factor. But if they play it clean and they run the ball well, this is a 4th quarter game, in my opinion.
All right, there you go. Anthony Becht, former Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and, of course, a local guy. Now, he's heading to Iowa State. His son's going to be playing there. Just signed his letter to go play at Iowa State, which I said I can't condone. That's bad parenting.
Hey, well, that's another conversation, but super excited about it. I'm just passing through St. Louis. I left about 4:45 this morning, and I've been on the phone and listening to YouTubes and all that kind of stuff. So it's been, honestly, I haven't paid attention to anything I've been driving by, quite frankly. I don't know how I'm still on the road, but knock on wood, I'm good to go. I got about 6 hours left.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
You got it, man. Thanks for having me.
at Anthony_Becht. And of course, he was kind enough to join us here on the Sports Bash. When we come back, we're going to go through all the NFL thoughts back and forth. My former co-host Todd Rank is here. You don't want to miss him, as usual, on the video stream and on the radio here on 97.3 ESPN. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. In this hour of the show was brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how. PropSwap.com. Download the PropSwap app today. Anthony said at the end of that conversation, I thought he gave us really good breakdown on what to do with Gronk. He says, I don't think the Bucs stop their run. That's coming from a guy who has seen every Tampa Bay game this year. I don't think the Bucs stop their run. Nick Sirianni, I hope you're listening because he said it from his lips to Sirianni's ears. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. My former co-host, Todd Rank. People love listening when Todd and I get together. Well, we reunite coming up next here on the Sports Bash. All right, Super Wild Card Weekend starts Saturday, 2 games Saturday, 3 Sunday, 1 Monday night. We'll have all 6 games for you live on 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And if you're watching the show live through the YouTube channel on your phone, you can use your YouTube app on your smart TV phone. And, of course, Todd Rank. All right, we got a lot to discuss. Now, we did our quarterback rankings yesterday on the show. Top 14 playoff quarterbacks. ESPN.com did their playoff ranking today. We tried to match ours up. Now, I was telling the people, Todd Rank, that you and I have had a little difference, I should say, on one of the quarterbacks in this field. And I thought it was interesting where they put him, where I put him, and where they put them, and I'd like to see where you put them as well. So what's up, man?
How's it going? Happy New Year, everybody. It's been a couple weeks. Hope you made it through the holidays. Had a good one?
Yeah, man. We're all good, feeling smart, feeling good. You know, everything's 2022. Hopefully this is the year that all that stuff's behind us so we can move on with our lives.
Well, it was nice to talk with you yesterday and our old producer about spring training. You know, as that New Year comes, then it becomes real, right? The whole Clearwater and all that good stuff.
So that's so funny because I was just talking to Anthony Becht. You know, he's down there in Tampa, right? And, well, he covers the Bucks, and the Eagles are playing the Bucks this week. So I was talking to him on the phone beforehand. Now, he did last week. He called the Eagles game Saturday night against Dallas for Westwood 1. Then he flew back to Tampa and did the Buccaneers game on Buccaneers radio, Buccaneers Carolina on Sunday. Well, now he's in the car driving to Iowa State where his son goes to school. He's moving him in there. I mean, he's been just going nonstop with the stuff. And I said, well, if you're going to be around in March in Clearwater, right, we're going down there on March. So he says, right, give me a call.
Of course, he'll be there. Maybe we go over to his digs. He puts up a nice dinner for us at the house.
You know what he does down there? He does that. Of course, he does all the football stuff, and he does pre and post game. But that's on the weekend. He does that home shopping network down there. That's why he lives down there.
No way.
Right? He does that home shopping network. He does like the football, like when they do like the jackets and stuff. Right? He models that stuff up there.
That's a great gig. We got to talk to him when we get down there. There might be some opportunities for you and me down there.
Just a little bit, man.
That's great.
Right, he lives down in that like St. Pete area. So that's where the home shopping network, I think their headquarters is.
That's ideal. I mean, what is that? 20, not even 20 minutes from us. So when we're down there, yeah, we'll definitely meet
that
up.
Run. Right. So I didn't quite, the flights were outrageous a while back. They were like over $600 round trip. Like who in their right mind would have booked a $600 round trip flight from Atlantic City to Tampa?
I mean, it's more expensive than it is from LA to Tampa.
I mean, it's preposterous. Well, the funny part is, so the flights were like over 600 round trip. Well, then they were like $375, which is still preposterous. Well, now they're down to like $88. Like, how did somebody say, all right, these are the discrepancy in prices?
Well, you know what's unfortunate is if you book it for $88 and you're sitting on that plane next to a guy who paid $600 and somehow that conversation comes up. I mean, you're sitting there telling him, man, this was a great flight, got this for under $100. And he looks at you like you're out of your mind.
Right.
Oh,
I paid $675 with the bags.
Yeah, that's not really what we're looking for, but no, that's good. We got back down into the price range. So
all right. So
we'll lock those up.
I was telling the people, like, so weeks ago, I said, you know, something about Stafford. I said he stinks. Now, of course, it's like hyperbole. Yeah, he stinks. And I say, okay, I backtrack off that. He doesn't stink, okay? But I said he's like you can have him. I don't want him as my guy. Now, we're going through the quarterbacks. We were ranking them yesterday. And of the 14 quarterbacks that made the playoffs, we all had, I had them at number 8.
8, okay.
Of this field,
okay,
which isn't even in the top half of the playoff quarterback. Josh had him like 10th, and ESPN.com had him actually 8th. So here is my big thing with Stafford. When I started talking about this weeks ago, you told me I wouldn't bring that up on your radio because you're going to lose credibility. The funny part is, since this conversation, that's been the only conversation. Everybody is talking about how Stafford stinks all of a sudden. I said, look, I didn't even say he stinks. I just said, you know, he's just whatever. And then that's turned into the narrative. So I was ahead of the people on that, but even I didn't have him ranked 10th like Josh did. Here's what I said. My biggest problem with Stafford, and people give him excuses. I said he was drafted number 1 overall, and it wasn't like he sucked. He was good in Detroit, right?
Yeah, well, he was the only thing that was good in Detroit.
Right, but here's my thing. A guy like Joe Burrow, he went to a lousy organization, but he was good enough to change the culture of the org. There must be something missing from Stafford, that he was there, was a productive player, was a good player. It wasn't like he was a bust. He wasn't Jamarcus Russell. And yet that team only got to the playoffs, 1-2 times in his entire career there? That tells me that he lacks something.
Well, here's what I'd say. He has stuff to prove. There's no question about that. I think the problem is because of his past and the resume of being on a really bad team. I mean, when we talk about, there's a lot of good quarterbacks that have come and gone in this league that they never get the opportunity because they either don't have the coach, they don't have the system, they don't have the team. He luckily has been given a second coming, right? He gets a rebirth. Now, everybody's very particular in what they see from him this year. Mind you, it is his first year with this team. This team has a lot of talent. There's no question. But this is his first year. And he's put them to a what? Are they 13-4 as a record?
They're 13-4, but I would say this. They're the 4th seed, which is no better than they were with Jared Goff, who went to the Super Bowl, and they were the 1 seed with Jared Goff.
Yeah, but you could look at Jared Goff as a Nick Foles run, Nick Foles wasn't necessarily getting us back to the Super Bowl the next year. Everybody can say, well, Todd, he could have, well, whatever. The reality is he had lightning in a bottle for 4 games. The point is, you're looking at a guy like Stafford. Yes, he's thrown some interceptions. That last loss last week was brutal for that team. I will admit that. But I also won't put the entire loss on him. I put a lot of that loss on McVay and some of the decisions he made. But beyond that, he's now got a chance, right? This is the 2nd season. So as much as you say, you're right. Don't get me wrong. I like Murray. I like Arizona. I think there's going to be a really tough game for the Rams. But he's going to have to get through Arizona. He's going to have to get through Green Bay with Rodgers. He's going to most likely have to get through Tampa Bay with Brady. So if he can make this run, he would silence a lot of people. There's no question.
I told you that. I said,
question.
And I don't even say he has to make the Super Bowl. All I told you was if he wins 2 games in these playoffs, I'll back off. And I'll say, all right, he proved me to be wrong. He won a couple of big games, and maybe he was the reason for it. Now, I don't know if he's going to be the reason for it or not. Those are all intangibles. But if they win 2 games, then I would probably say, okay, he's proven me to be a little bit wrong. The biggest thing for me with him is, again, I go back to how the hell did he have successful seasons and the team never could win? Like, that's almost unheard of, where you have a quarterback who has played at his level, statistically speaking, and yet never makes the playoffs. Like, I've never even seen it's unfathomable.
Well, and this is why we would have to really look back at the research, right? Because the incompetence by some of that coaching probably went into factor there. Didn't he have Megatron for a couple of years?
I would think earlier in his career that he had Johnson, maybe like in the beginning. I mean, he's had some weapons there.
Yeah.
Galladay was pretty good. I mean, he had Tate for a little bit. I mean, he's had some offensive weapons. I don't understand. Like, they went to the playoffs when they had Caldwell. They were like 9-7, like once or twice. But it's like so
Mike,
weird.
Think about Barry Sanders on Detroit.
They went to the playoffs at least.
Yeah, but again, that guy's what, if you ask me, he might be the greatest running back. He left early. I mean, this guy, and they still couldn't get over the hump. They make the playoffs, but they made the
playoffs, but they weren't a Super Bowl team. They had lousy. Their problem was they had no quarterback. They had Rodney Peete, Scott Mitchell.
But again, Stafford, he's not Tom Brady. Tom Brady goes into a new team in Tampa Bay and wins a championship. That's not normal, right? We know that. So to your point, if Stafford could win this game this weekend at home, put up a good game, and again, the game is good. We're going to have to watch the game, because if he does everything in his power to win the game and somebody else on the team just makes a blunder mistake, or the coach, then we'll be able to look at that and go, okay, Stafford did everything he could. But he does have to prove something this week, and I agree with you fully. I just think he's getting killed, and the reality is the guy's got his team at 13-4. He's put up probably, if not the best numbers, the second best numbers by a quarterback this year. He's done a lot of good. Yeah. Everybody's just looking at those mistakes.
Well, it's one of those things. It's like the whole, like, do you want Kirk Cousins as your quarterback?
Well, and I don't want Kirk Cousins. No.
Right. And if you look, if I just took his nameplate off and said, look, here's his numbers. He's got 4,500 yards, 37 touchdowns. I mean, the guy's numbers are outrageous. You would say, I'd take this guy until you find out, it's like the Masked Singer when he takes off the helmet and you're like, maybe not.
No, it's a good point. No, and again, I get your point on that one. I would agree with you on the Kirk Cousins. I just think I want to give Stafford 2-3 years with this team, because the other is he does need, like every other good quarterback in this league, he needs Rodgers to go away. He needs Brady to go away. Those two guys, until they go away, are the juggernaut. Now, I know Rodgers only has one Super Bowl, but those two guys are the favorites. I mean, Rodgers is playing as if he's playing in his own league this year. I mean, he's not even playing with the rest of the league. So you were telling me that Stafford's supposed to beat him, or it's going to be a tough task. I mean, there's just no question. Now, let me ask you this.
Somebody's got to. Somebody has beaten Rodgers every single time he's been to the playoffs, except for once. So somebody's got to be the guy that. And let me tell you, the guy who beats him is typically not the better quarterback in that game.
Well, I mean, I'd agree, because Rodgers is, to me, the best quarterback in the league, right? I mean,
right now, where do you go? Where do you stand? We haven't had this conversation before, so people think I'm biased. And I'm trying to explain I'm not, but let's see where you are. Where do you stand on Mike McCarthy?
I'm not a big Mike McCarthy fan. I wasn't when he was in Green Bay, quite frankly.
There's a reason why Rodgers only has one Super Bowl.
Look, I will say this. He's a serviceable head coach. And look, there's not a lot of those in this league. So he's serviceable. And he's had a great talent in Aaron Rodgers. And now he has a pretty good talent in Dak Prescott. I'm going to be honest with you, Mike. You ask me who's going to win this game this weekend, I'm going to lean to the 49ers. I'm just telling you. And it's not
about – last week, Dallas goes and plays all their guys, and they beat Philly. They score 51, and people are going nuts like, hey, they look great. I said, well, they scored 56 2 weeks ago against Washington, and then the next week they lost to Arizona. Like, if people haven't figured out by now, what you do one week has nothing to do with what you do the next week. I don't know what to tell these people, but if I'm Dallas, I would have rather played Arizona again than get stuck playing San Francisco.
Well, they didn't know, right? Until San Francisco upset the Rams, they didn't know who they were going to play. But I will say this. I think when you look at the Cowboys, I do think the one good thing, I think it was smart of them to play their starters last week, because they didn't want the rust. They've learned from the past. They wanted to stay in rhythm. So I think for that point, they were smart to do it.
Yeah, I don't think like there's people go like back and forth. Like there's no evidence whether sitting out helps or not playing helps. You know what I mean? Like there's a reason why teams want to be the number one seed to get the bye so that they don't have to play.
Well, for injury, right? As long as Dallas came out of that game last week without injury, right. I think it's a positive. And so I think they're
hindsight being 2020, yeah, right? But if somebody got hurt in that game, and you would say, "What the hell were you doing?"
No question about it. So and again, San Fran is warming up now. Are they beatable? Of course. Should Dallas? They're favored to beat them, I'm sure.
3.5.
But San Fran, they've got a stud. They got Deebo Samuel, who's a stud. And Garoppolo, again, people don't give Garoppolo enough credit. This guy was playing with a busted thumb on his throwing hand. I mean, are you kidding me? Guy was throwing darts. I mean, it was unbelievable.
I said before the day, we brought this up in the first hour. You got Brady with 7 Super Bowls. You got Rodgers, who's got a Super Bowl. The next most accomplished guy in this NFC field is Garoppolo. He's the only other guy. He's been to the Super Bowl. Nobody else has a win.
Yeah.
So not another quarterback in the NFC field has a win. Did Prescott win one game?
He won one game.
All right, so Prescott's got one.
He beat Matthew Stafford.
He beat Stafford standard. I don't want to slight the Cowboy fan out there because Prescott did win one. So it would be Brady, Rodgers, Garoppolo with his Super Bowl appearance. Then Prescott would be 4. And then I guess, Jalen Hurts, this is his first time ever in the playoffs.
Are you giving – let me ask you that. Are you giving this Hurts and these Eagles a chance against Tampa Bay? And
I'm gonna say 70-30.
What do they have to do? I mean, what do you see outside of Tom Brady getting injured in that game? What do the Eagles do to legitimately give themselves a chance? Time of possession? I mean, is that it?
Well, I mean, the first time they played, Tampa had the ball for 39 minutes and 56 seconds. That's not conducive to a victory. 40 minutes to 20. The Eagles, the first game they played, they didn't run at all. And now, after that game, they kind of transformed into a pass-first team to all of a sudden they're the best running team in the league. I mean, they average 185 yards a game on the ground. They got the best offensive line. And if you remember it late in that game, they started to run the ball like in the late third quarter, fourth quarter, and they started to run all over the place. And then the next week they started to run again, and then they just – they played Detroit and only threw like 12 passes.
Yeah.
So – if they can run the ball, time of possession, and control the clock, the game can at least be close. Last time, Brady completed 81% of it. I mean, they just couldn't stop him. But they don't have Antonio Brown. They don't got Godwin. They're missing a lot of bullets in the chamber. So I think it is it realistic? I said 70-30. If they can run the ball and get a stop here and there, getting the stop is the problem I have more issue with.
Yeah, well, exactly. How does that defense hold up? Does Brady just pick them apart, right? Does he figure out he's the smartest guy on the field, right?
Yeah.
That's
Becht was really good. He broke it down pretty good last hour about what to do with Gronk. I mean, Becht played tight end. He's coached in the league. He was a coach in the in that AAF league. He was a tight ends coach for a couple of years with them in the XFL. So he knows the position. And he's like, look, I don't know why more teams don't cover him. And he really broke it down. I don't think the Eagles have the personnel to do it. That's the problem. Their defense just doesn't have the linebacking depth to do it. They've got the defensive line. They've got a cover guy with Slay. So you go Slay against Evans. If you can run the ball and you got to get that pass rush early in the game. You know what I'm saying? Like that up the middle on Brady where the pocket's right in his face. That's your only shot, man.
Yeah, he's not running, right? You know that. So that gives you an out. You don't have to chase him. It's just a matter of suffocate him and squeeze the line and squeeze that pocket on him to make it uncomfortable. That's going to be the key because he gets the ball out quick, right? He's one of those guys. He gets the ball out quick. So
so that's it for that. That's for me. That's the thing. It's whether or not they can get the early pressure and then run the ball, control the clock. That's where you kind of turn the game into your favor. Is we get that early stop, we control. It's like when you get into those games where you're feeling out and you're punting for field position and you're changing the field, like you got to slow that game down. You can't get to another Brady the first time. I mean, they couldn't stop him. It was pathetic.
Well, but again, the Eagles were a completely different team. I mean, they're
the completely different team offensively. Defensively, they got a lot of the same personnel. They're undermanned on defense. That's their problem.
Yeah. So you're going to have to match them. If you can keep the game close going into the fourth, then you've got a chance to control the clock, control the game, try to keep Brady off the field. I mean, again, it's a tough task. This has been a winning season. I mean, look, none of us thought, I don't think you did. We were talking week 4, week 5 of the season. I mean, this team, some were talking was the worst team in the league, and they turned it around completely. So this is a win for this team in this city. Again, you get in the playoffs, anything can happen, but it's going to be a tough test. But this is great experience for Jalen Hurts, Mike. I mean, this is great experience.
Right, the whole thing. And they got 3 first-round picks, and then there's so much talk about what do you do, with the picks. Do you try to get a quarterback? Do you stick with Hurts? I'm sticking with Hurts, and I'm going to try to add to the defense. That's their problem. They got to get defense. They need another receiver, too. Rager's awful. They don't have another guy. I mean, Smith is solid. Goddard's very good. They need another receiver in this offense. That's what they're really lacking.
No, I agree with you. Now, would you look, I guess you and me have talked a little bit off the radio about, what's out there as far as big names, and there really aren't that many that are going to move from their teams, right? Everybody, the big talk is Russell Wilson and what's going to happen in Seattle. Where would he go? Who could he go to? That's the only name that you would fit in and say, I'll take him.
You got that. You got the Wilson thing. You got Rodgers, who knows what's going on with Rodgers. Does he want to go back there? And then you got the whole thing with Watson. Now, that was weird today because they fired the coach there today.
Well, he was on borrowed time. I think he was the bridge, right? It feels like he was the bridge.
Well, still, you bring the guy in last year. Okay, what did you think he was going to do? He won 4 games with that team. I mean, that's a miracle.
I know, and without your starting quarterback.
Right. So you hire this guy with this whole quarterback situation looming. I think they're going to hire the Miami coach, Flores, because the reason Watson wanted to go to play in Miami is because he wanted to play for Flores. So Houston said, let's go get that guy and bring him here.
Well, and you wonder, though, Mike, look, we know what the NFL is. How many guys lost their job this year? 8, 9? It's going to be 10. I mean, when you're a coach, you're lucky to get 1. You might get 2 to prove yourself. If you haven't done anything in 2 years, you're out most of the time.
Right. Well, 1 is preposterous for that situation.
Well, right.
It wasn't like they were a laughing stock or an embarrassment. They played hard. They fought. They had some upsets. They had the quarterback thing that he had to go through. For them to have 4 wins, I thought he kept that team. Like the guy in New York, Joe Judge, he deserved to go yesterday. I mean, weeks ago. Oh, man.
No, and look, I think this guy from Houston, this won't tarnish his resume. I don't think they're going to look at him like, oh, he's a losing head coach in this league. But I will say, Mike, as I looked at him and you're watching it, you just know certain guys are head coaches. He didn't feel to me like a head coach.
Oh, I agree. Well, it was a weird hire to begin with. The guy was an older guy who had nothing but a wide receiver coach.
Yeah, there was something wasn't right there from the beginning. I think he might have already known what was going on. So I don't even know that he's that shocked, to be honest with you.
All right. So real quick, let's fire them off real fast. You got Patriots, Bills. Who you got?
Bills field goal at home.
All right. You got Vegas, Cincinnati.
Who am I picking?
Yep.
I'm taking Vegas.
I kind of like that Vegas too, man.
Hey, man.
I like that kid from Cincinnati, but I feel like their line sucks.
Well, and I'm telling you, the Raiders are playoff ready, unbelievably. Every game they've had to win the last 4
You like that coach
weeks.
out there?
Well, again, I think he's a bridge. I think he's a great bridge, but I think he's a bridge. And unfortunately, I think they're going to keep him, and I don't think they should, but he's done well. He's done real well.
49ers, Cowboys.
I'm going to lean and go 49ers.
Steelers, Chiefs.
I mean, I have to go Chiefs.
Rams, Cardinals.
Look, there's something I want Stafford to do well, right? I want him to win that game, but I'm going to be honest with you. I think Arizona's going to win that game.
And then Eagles, Bucks, 8.5.
Well, the spread, I might lean to the Eagles, but I'm going to take the Bucks for sure. All
right. Todd Rank, there you go. There's our picks, or his picks. I'll give you mine tomorrow. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. There you go, man. All right. It's almost March.
I know we're getting closer, man. Have a good weekend. It should be a good weekend of football. Look forward to talking to you next week, man.
All right. There's Todd Rank here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. When we come back, Rob Maaddi is here to give us some perspective from Tampa Bay. He's got this game covered from both angles. He is live in Tampa. Yesterday at the Bruce Arians press conference, he had an interesting question also for Tom Brady. You hear what Maaddi has to say coming up. Hey, I want to tell you about my friends over at Ambient Comfort Solutions. They've got a great deal going on. Hey, if your heating, cooling situation goes under the fritz, there's only one name to call. It's Ambient Comfort. Tell Mike Gill from the Sports Bash sent you $50 off your furnace if you broke your New Year's resolution, which was, I wasn't going to curse. Swear, but my furnace went. So what do? You call Ambient Comfort, and they will give you $50 off the fix. Doesn't matter who installed it for you. Just tell Mike Gill from the Sports Bash you heard it right here on 97.3. All right, when we come back, Maaddi's in the house. Don't go away. This is the Sports Bash. All right, everybody, welcome back to Sports Bash. Live on location today. We are at Chickies and Pete's in Atlantic City inside the Tropicana. And, of course, you can watch all the playoff action right here. It all starts Saturday, triple header Sunday, and there's even a Monday night game. We're going to look at the playoffs right now. Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press is covering the Eagles and the Buccaneers. He has both perspectives. We'll hit on that and more NFL right now here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Welcome back, Rob. What's going on?
What's up, Mike? Man, it's a fun, busy week this week. Eagles, Buccaneers. Who would have thought that they'd be coming to me down here in Tampa? So I'm looking forward to it. I haven't seen rain in about a month or so, but here we go. Sunday, game time. We're expecting some wind. We're expecting some rain. And guess what? I think that plays into the Eagles' favor.
Yeah, let's discuss that. We had T-Mac on yesterday. He's going to call the game nationally for Westwood 1. And he was like, yeah, I've been a part of those rainstorms in Clearwater. You know, you're down there now. It's an interesting dynamic for the listeners out there. Rob covered the league, you know, for the Associated Press in the Philadelphia area. So you're around the Eagles for what, 20 years, right?
Yep. 20,
you moved to Tampa.
Years,
21 years. You moved to Tampa and now kind of cover the entire league. And it turns out, and you've been covering the Eagles this year. You've been flying back to Philly, going to Eagle home games. And then it turns out these two teams meet here. And now you throw this rain into the mix. You know, this is just like a perfect storm of things happening.
Yeah, it is. And some of the guys from the Bucs yesterday were talking about this. And Mike Evans, interestingly, said, wide receiver, he's like, DBs they smile. They're happy when they hear about rain. And I thought to myself, like, well, as a receiver, you know where you're going. The DB does. So I thought advantage receiver, but he talked about how trying to catch a ball, even if you're wide open, with rain pelting you in the face, is not an easy thing to do. So from the perspective of their quarterback, Tom Brady, he's played in some bad weather games up in Foxborough. He's played in a lot of bad weather games. However, this year, Mike, when you look at it, their only rain game was Brady-Belichick week 4 up in New England. And in that game, the Bucs won 19-17, but the offense was not moving the ball well. He had his lowest completion percentage of the season and second worst passer rating of the season playing in that rain in Foxborough. So I do think it's advantage running football team, Philadelphia Eagles, in this rain on Sunday.
Yeah, let's also mix in the rain coupled with some of the losses on offense, Rob. How are they kind of talking about that? You know, no Antonio Brown, no Godwin. Godwin, to me, is a big one. Over almost 100 catches in 14 games. You know, that seems like a very reliable target to not be there.
Yeah, he's a big move the chains guy, keep drives going. They've missed him significantly. Also, of course, not having Antonio Brown, despite all the drama. The last time they played the Eagles, he was the leading receiver for the Buccaneers, and he got injured in that game. That's when that whole ankle issue started. So they're a banged-up team. They're getting Leonard Fournette back at running back, but he's been out for 3 weeks. We don't know what he's going to have first game back in almost a month. They're relying now on not just Mike Evans, who's the star receiver, but they're relying on guys like Brashard Perriman, Tyler Johnson, Scotty Miller, Cyril Grayson, who just got injured. So they even their depth guys are banged up too, but they're relying on some of these guys that Brady's used to, the Chris Hogans and the lesser name wide receivers from his days in New England, but he put up monster numbers this year, thanks in part to having Godwin, Evans, Antonio Brown. Now, I do think that the wild card here for the Bucs is the fact that they have Rob Gronkowski healthy and playing at a high level right now. He didn't play the last time they faced the Eagles, so I think this is going to be a big Gronk game for the Bucs. He's a guy who the matchups favor him. He's one of the greatest of all time, so it doesn't really matter who he's going against, but the Eagles are very susceptible to tight ends, and I think Brady's going to attack that for sure, and you can see Gronk have a big game.
Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press is taking a look at the Eagles and the Bucs, and you were talking with Bruce Arians the other day. You know, he talked about the leadership, workaholic, but I thought the one thing he brought up, he kind of praised Hurts for his downfield passing ability. Like, that's something that's been questioned a lot. You know, listeners say, oh, his arm's not strong enough. He can't throw the ball down the field. And it seems that Arians is saying, hey, there's one thing that I'm watching with this guy's a passer is his ability to kind of pass it down the field. I thought that was an interesting observation by him.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting how Eagles fans reacted to any praise this week that came from Bruce Arians or Tom Brady. Like, I've never seen a fan base so offended anytime somebody compliments them. Now, listen, 80, 90% of the time, guys are going to say the same things over and over again. You could substitute Jalen Hurts' name for the next quarterback they face or the quarterback they faced 2 weeks ago, and they're going to compliment them. They're going to praise them. They're going to say good things about them. But you'd rather have that being said about your guys than saying, hey, they're horse bleep and we're going to go out there and whip their butts. Now, that would make bulletin board material, but Brady and Bruce Arians are too smart for that kind of thing. That when he's talking about everything he said, like you pointed out about Jalen Hurts, workaholic, gym rat, great leader. Yeah, checks off all those boxes. When he said the downfield throwing, a few of us really shrugged and said, huh, really, Bruce? Okay. And that's what now, could he be seeing only highlights? I'm sure they get every angle of every tape. I don't know how genuine he was in that, but hey, Jalen Hurts has improved steadily throughout the course of the season, significantly improved from week 1 to now, week 1 of the NFL playoffs. He's a better quarterback. He's in no mood to pray. I thought he was really Nick Saban-ish yesterday talking to the Philly media when you heard Jalen refusing to answer a question from Jeff McClain, dismissing the question from Tim McManus about when was the last time or first memory of watching Tom Brady. I don't remember it. Like he's focused. He's locked in. He's not here to bow at the altar of Tom Brady or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I guess good for him. You got to do whatever you got to do to motivate yourself. But I think he can be in for a big running game, and the Eagles are going to need that.
Yeah, and I was looking back, Rob, at the 3 games since the injury, and his rushing, yards per game is down from about 60 a game down to under 30 a game. So it's evident that ankle had been playing a factor here. Sirianni suggested yesterday that he's pretty much 100% now. So could we see a big influx of runs? He ran 10 times, 44 yards the first time they played. But in that game, they only ran the ball 9 times with running backs. If you can use the running backs more and mix in Hurts, the Bucs might have a little bit of decisions to make on some of these plays.
Yeah, if you remember in that game, Miles Sanders got 1 carry in the first half, and the Eagles were trailing 21-7 at halftime. Then he gets 8 carries, and he runs for 55 yards in the second half, which is a pretty nice clip, 7 yards a pop there, and they make it a game. They get to within 28-22. I think you're going to have to rely on Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, Jordan Howard, Kenneth Gainwell in this game, and even if you're not running the ball well early on, even if you fall behind 7-0, 10-0, 13-14-0, continue to run the football, because although the Buccaneers are number 3 against the run overall, I think some of those numbers are skewed because teams have had to play catch up on them and throw against them, and they just abandon the run in the second half of games. So yes, they do have Vita Vea up front, who's a run-stuffing monster in the middle of that defense, but you can run the ball to the perimeter on these, which is what Miles Sanders likes to do. Now, occasionally maybe you do that and Jordan Howard pops one through the middle. If Vita's on the sideline getting a blow, you try and anytime he's off the field, you try and run it up the gut. That's something that's a strategy that I would try and employ. But I think you got to get the running backs involved early and maybe try and get them involved in a different way. Some of the short passing screen game too, as well, just to make sure those running backs aren't put on hold until the second half, because by then you could be behind 23-3 or something like that. So I think this has got to be a game where Nick Sirianni does. He said all week that, hey, we're going to do what we've done to get here. You can't change who you are in week 1 of the playoffs, because if so, then you've done it wrong for 17, 18 weeks. Well, what you did right was run the football, consistently commit to that run. And this is something that I think they got to do no matter what. And the elements are going to play to them on Sunday.
Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press. Now, you wrote a piece about John Gannon earlier this week. And, really, here's a guy who he's got a head coaching opportunity. And he said, look, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about Tampa. It's got to be on his mind. Not to mention the last time he played this very team, he got blitzed for 81% by Tom Brady. Now, he has said, we have some new things we're going to try. To me, that's the story of the game. If you complete 81%, you ain't winning this game. I mean, that's facts right there. So he's got to figure out something different this time around. And quite frankly, Rob, I don't know that he has the answer anywhere on this roster. I don't know if that trick's in his bag.
Yeah, and he's going to have to be really creative. And I don't know that Jonathan Gannon can devise any scheme that Tom Brady hasn't seen. We're talking about the greatest of all time. We're talking about somebody who is as prepared as anybody. And this is going to be one of the biggest challenges in Gannon's career and for the Eagles is trying to see what they can do. Now, it's going to help if they can't throw the ball in premium weather conditions where it's 65, 70, 80 degrees and beautiful and sunny out. If that's going to be a factor that's going to help the Eagles take advantage of it, try and make Brady, the teams who've had success against Brady in the playoffs are the teams who've made him uncomfortable. You're going to have to get a pass rush up front. The front four is going to have, because if you blitz him, he's going to beat you. So those four guys up front, Fletcher Cox and Josh Sweat and Javon Hargrave, and they're going to have to, Derek Barnett, they're going to have to get to Brady and make him uncomfortable, make him rush his throws. If you got Mike Evans being blanketed by Darius Slay, now Mike Evans is one of the best and one of the most underrated receivers, I think, in the league. So he's going to get open occasionally. As good as Slay is, he's going to get a shot. But you got to make Brady rush that throw, and you got to make him throw it from take away his line of vision or knock some balls down, whatever you got to do to make him uncomfortable. And that's the best way to get him out of his rhythm. And it's going to be the biggest challenge for the Eagles. And it's one that I think defensively it's going to be tough, and it's going to help them if the weather conditions aren't optimal for the Buccaneers. That, to me, is going to be the biggest advantage that the Eagles have.
All right, we'll get your thoughts on that game. Let's get a quick pick on all these games. Super Wild Card Weekend. You can hear all 6 games on 97.3 ESPN. Vegas, Cincinnati. Who you got?
Oh, I'm taking Cincinnati, not only to win the game, to cover the line there.
Wow.
So I like Cincinnati. I think the Raiders are spent from playing. They had an exhausting game just trying to get into the playoff, even though they could have tied and got in. They're exhausted. They're happy to get there. Derek Carr's first playoff game, he didn't play. He was hurt the last time they made it. Joe Burrow and that offense are too much, I think, for the Raiders. So I'll take Cincy. I haven't picked a game against the spread officially this year because last postseason, Mike, I went 12-1, and I just wanted to ride that success against the spread. I'm just going to sit on my 12-1 last year, and I'm not going to pick and ruin that this year. But I'm going on record with all the playoff games this year, so I'll take Cincy minus the 5.
Saturday night, AFC East, Pats on the road at Buffalo. Buffalo's home here, but their home weather might actually hurt them.
Yeah, it's going to be supposed to be 4 degrees, and we saw the last time the Patriots played Buffalo in Buffalo. Both teams won on each other's home field, and it was it's what's going to be the infamous game now where Mac Jones only threw 3 passes and they won that game. I'm going to take Buffalo in this one, not only to win but to cover. There's a lot of people who are down on them. I had them going to the AFC Championship game and losing to Kansas City. I'm going to stick with that. I know they've been inconsistent. I just don't think Mac Jones is ready to win a playoff game on the road if they need him to make a pass. I think Buffalo, which has the number 1 defense in the NFL, I know they gave up a lot of yards rushing the football against New England last time, but overall they do have the number 1 statistical defense in the NFL. I think they'll be able to shut the Patriots down. I'm not ready to give Belichick a road playoff win without Tom Brady.
All right, San Fran, Dallas. Dallas beat Philly. That got them to this game. Is this the game they wanted, or were they better off staying at 4 and playing Arizona?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough matchup. I was very impressed last week with Jimmy Garoppolo. I've been very critical of him. I don't think he's a quarterback you can win a Super Bowl with, but I think the 49ers have a formula to beat the Cowboys. They can run the football. They're a very physical football team, and that doesn't sit well for the Dallas Cowboys, who've been kind of up and down. You never know what to expect from them. Defensively, they've had some great games. Offensively, sometimes they're explosive. I think that 51 they put up against the Eagles, second string and third string team, might actually be something that it gets them to a false sense of security going into this game. So I'm going to pick the 49. I want to see Jimmy Garoppolo versus Tom Brady in the NFC Championship game, and the only way to do that is for the Niners to win this one. So I'm going to take them plus the 3 to win the game outright as one of my upset specials.
I like that. I'm leaning towards San Francisco as well. I say Dallas went out, played to win, and then got stuck into a worse situation. Pittsburgh, Kansas City. I feel like no one's given Pittsburgh a shot.
Yeah, and even Ben Roethlisberger, who joked about them not being good enough or being the 14th best playoff team. This one's easy. I think the Chiefs are going to win the game. My only concern would be a backdoor cover. 12 and a half is a big number. It might be 13 in some spots. Whatever it is, I'm going to take – I think the Chiefs are rolling, and I'm going to take Kansas City. I think they finally got things together after that rough start. They've been a little bit inconsistent, but I'll take Kansas City after what the Steelers had to do just to get into the playoffs. I think there's a little bit of that. We're happy to get there. Ben's last ride. I don't know what he's got left. Give me the young Patrick Mahomes, who's still ascending, even though people thought earlier in the year that he's hit his peak. And I'll take the Chiefs easy in this one.
Ooh, easy, he says. All right, Arizona and the Rams split, but the Rams have dominated the Cards in recent years here. Games at L.A. doesn't seem to matter. Arizona is better on the road. No Hopkins, though. That's a problem for me.
Yeah, 8-1 against the spread on the road this year, the Arizona Cardinals. The number's 4, I believe. That's what I saw last. There's a little bias with Zach Ertz and Jordan Hicks there. I've said that the LA coaches, Sean McVay and Brandon Staley, are two of the most overrated, if not most overrated coaches in the NFL. And I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals in this one. I like the playmaking skills of Kyler Murray. They may get J.J. Watt back. I don't know if they can get a pass rush on Matthew Stafford. That's going to help him. I think he's prone to mistakes. We've seen that. I could see Zach Ertz making a big play, and I could see Jordan Hicks coming up with a turnover. Maybe, again, that's my bias because of those guys. I like them. And it's another upset special for me. I'm going to take the Cardinals not only to cover, but to win the game outright.
Do you have another upset special? Philly and Tampa. Let's get your pick there.
I like the Eagles to cover. It's 8.5. Everything I spoke about with the rain and the wind and all that played into their favor. I like the Eagles to cover the 8.5, but I just can't pick against Tom Brady in this game. I don't care if it's a monsoon. I think he's going to find a way. He can't lose this football game he's the greatest of all time. He's playing at a high level. I know some people are misguidedly saying, oh, he's leaking oil or he's at the end. Yeah, he's at the end because he's 44, but he just led the NFL in almost every passing category this year. He should be, in my opinion, the MVP. I don't know that he'll win it, but I'll take Brady to win the game. But I think it's going to be close, and it's going to be a hard-fought, tough nail-biter for Eagles and Buccaneers fans.
All right, there you go. A quick little rundown of all the games. Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press. And, of course, you can listen to all 6 games right here on 97.3 ESPN. Good to see you, Rob. We'll talk to you on Tuesday, recapping either a win or looking ahead to the offseason.
Thanks, Mike. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the games.
All right, that's Rob Maaddi here on the Sports Bash, and he is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook in partnership with Resorts Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. Visit resortsac.com to book your next getaway for game day specials. I'm Mike Gill. We'll close out the show coming up next here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. All right, wrapping up the show here on a Thursday live at Chickies and Pete's. I'm Mike Gill at Mike Gill Show on Twitter. And, of course, coming up next, game night. Josh has you till 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock till 7. That's when the Flyers are taking on Boston. You can hear that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Good show today. Sal Paolantonio, Rob Maaddi, Anthony Becht. We were busy. Keith Smith, if you missed any of it. We're back tomorrow. We have a big show for you tomorrow, including got a special guest at 3 o'clock tomorrow, a little reunion of sorts. 3 o'clock tomorrow here on the Sports Bash. All right, there's a little tease for you. Jeff Mosher tomorrow, football at 4. Casey Joyner, one thought every game. And, of course, we'll get you ready. We'll give you our picks for all of the super wild card round. And our Eagles and Bucks pick, all the coverage tomorrow. Sixers tomorrow as well, right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Josh has you till 7, and I'm Mike Gill. I'll talk to you tomorrow right here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Three, two, and 1. Hey, it's Mike Gill. We're getting you ready for Super Wild Card Weekend. All your Eagles and Bucks coverage. Got a special reunion guest at 3 o'clock. Don't forget to check us out at 3 for a little special reunion. Jeff Mosher has football at 4. One thought every game. Casey Joyner, Jeff Kerr, 5:30, all right here Friday on the Sports Bash.